Is your plan to read? List a dimension-sized bag of holding that you'll never actually empty? Let us help you declutter. Welcome to Manhwa Novel Recap, professional story hoarders at your service. We're a brand new channel starting our collection with a cinematic gem, mist, might, and mayhem. Like if your list is out of control, subscribe to let us manage the inventory for you. Ring the bell for new acquisition alerts. The ravenous hunger gnawing at its essence began to merge with a returning consciousness. For over a decade, this monstrous appetite had driven it, an indiscriminate force consuming all within its grasp. Reason flickered, a long-lost echo. Yet, it was swiftly overshadowed by an insatiable craving. Its existence had been a repetitive, agonizing cycle. Only tormented, vengeful spirits, trapped within the desolate chasm, offered a fleeting morsel. Survival was once its sole instinct. It fled, cowering from the frenzied consumption of its brethren. But the desperate fight to live twisted into something volatile. An explosion of resentment and madness consumed it. Then, after years of this horror, a novel presence entered its domain. A peculiar stillness settled as it fixed its gaze upon a chained figure. Was it truly a living being? The thought alone sent a tremor through its ethereal mass. This forsaken place knew only the anguished wails of the dead. New vengeful spirits occasionally plummeted, adding to the cacophony. But never had flesh and blood dared to trespass here. A living soul in this hellish realm was unprecedented. A surge of excitement rippled through it. The dead, withered spirits could never fully sate the gnawing hunger born from its profound madness. This new arrival, vibrant with life, ignited a perverse curiosity. Fear, it mused, would be a potent offering. The terror and dread wrung from a living creature promised superior nourishment. Yet, the human's response was perplexing. A strange smile, laced with unsettling malice, curved his lips. "It seems like our opinions coincide," he uttered, his voice an odd counterpoint to the desolate silence. This was utterly wrong. His limbs, bound by chains that could easily tear flesh, remained relaxed. It was an affront to its burgeoning power. The spirit's rage intensified. "Then I shall savor your suffering," it vowed silently, "as I meticulously tear off your limbs and devour you piece by piece." A subtle gesture from the spirit yanked Mok Gyeong-un forward. He offered no resistance. A faint, taunting smile still etched on his face. This nonchalance fueled the spirit's fury further. It dragged the human closer, right before its formless maw. "I will strip your skin, peel your flesh, and consume you down to your very bones," it hissed, a guttural whisper of promised torment. Mok Gyeong-un's smirk widened. "You possess a rather noble hobby," he retorted, his tone dripping with mock admiration. The spirit recoiled, indignant. Impudent human. To remain so composed, so utterly unbothered, directly in its formidable presence was an intolerable insult. Very well. The spirit resolved to witness if that insolent calm would persist once true agony took hold. A chain, sharp as a spear, plunged into Mok Gyeong-un's left shoulder. A sickening thud echoed. Whether he was fearless or numb did not matter. Pain, it believed, would surely shatter his composure. But no, his expression remained unchanged. "Is this all?" he drawled, his smirk unwavering. This was not enough. With a surge of will, the myriad chains, writhing like venomous serpents, sprang to life. One chain impaled his right shoulder. 2 more ripped through his thighs. Another, cruelly, burrowed into his abdomen. This was not a pain to be endured by mere willpower. The chains pulsed with extreme cold and searing heat, burning and freezing his flesh and organs simultaneously. This agony, it knew, originated from the mind, designed to inflict the worst suffering. But then, an impossible realization struck. This human. His expression remained utterly impassive. He merely stared, a dismissive snort escaping his lips. How could a being of fragile flesh endure such torment so nonchalantly? As the spirit reeled in astonishment, Mok Gyeong-un spoke, his voice cutting through its confusion. "Do you truly believe something like this will frighten me or cause me pain?" he challenged, his words laced with derision. "You're merely wasting your efforts." A guttural growl rumbled, and the entire space convulsed as if struck by an earthquake. The spirit was consumed by rage. How dare this insignificant being mock it? Fine. As he wished, it would devour him alive. The chains, still embedded in Mok Gyeong-un's form, pulled him inexorably towards its monstrous maw. The opening mouth, a chasm between gaps in its chains, was far from human. Hundreds of sharp, thorn-like projections lined its interior, and a violet, acrid smoke wafted from its depths. A deafening roar tore through the air as its maw widened, preparing to swallow Mok Gyeong-un whole. The chains piercing his body loosened, retracting as Mok Gyeong-un's form drew closer to the abyss of its throat. His head and shoulders neared the gaping maw. Then something small and foreign detached itself from Mok Gyeong-un. It landed with a soft plop. The spirit dismissed it as merely blood or flesh, an insignificant byproduct of its imminent meal. But as the object passed through its throat, a searing pain erupted within it. A burning agony. "What did you do?" it shrieked internally, its rage dissolving into unexpected torment. "You shouldn't let your guard down just because you've captured everything," Mok Gyeong-un's voice echoed, devoid of his previous taunting. The ring that had adorned his finger was no longer there. It was the ring, the one containing the diviner Jo Yui-gong's potent spell. As the internal burning intensified, Mok Gyeong-un swiftly formed a hand seal. Commanding the Ink Supreme Ruler's mantra, the divine obscurity responds to the spirit, forming the myriad phenomena. The divine obscurity subdues demons like a thunderbolt, urgent as commanded. He roared, his voice resonating with power. A blinding light erupted from deep within the spirit's throat. This was the Imperial Ink Divine spell, designed to invoke a powerful supreme ruler into the ring, unleashing an explosive force to subdue vengeful spirits. Exploding from within, the spell's power was overwhelming. The spirit, despite its advanced transformation, screamed, writhing in agony. Its distorted body temporarily fractured, its form momentarily broken, but it did not dissipate entirely. Its grade was too high for complete subjugation by a single strike. Yet it was weakened. The chains that had bound its very being scattered, dissolving into the air. In that fleeting moment of vulnerability, Mok Gyeong-un lunged, propelling his body directly towards the spirit's writhing, pain-contorted mouth. "What was this?" the spirit internally shrieked. The human was willingly leaping into its maw. It immediately tried to snap its jaws shut, to chew Mok Gyeong-un into oblivion. But Mok Gyeong-un was swifter. His hand shot out, reaching deep into its throat. "The mortals are not eternal, and the two forms are like a dream. The five aggregates are all empty, and the myriad phenomena are like an illusion," he chanted, the mnemonic of the art of binding. This was his gamble. The most direct, yet most perilous path to absorb the vast death key from this monumental manifestation of resentment. He aimed for its very core, its internal essence. From the outside, bound by chains, there had been no other way. Yet, as he initiated the art of binding, Mok Gyeong-un's body was not merely absorbing the key. It was sucked deep inside, as if pulled by an unseen force, plummeting into a hidden space within the spirit's mouth. He fell into an abyss of darkness, a seemingly bottomless pit. Mok Gyeong-un's body was being drawn towards the spirit's origin, the very wellspring of its being. As he plummeted, fragments of the spirit's memories flooded his mind, a jarring montage of a life, then an afterlife, consumed by torment. Big brother, I will always be with you." A bright, innocent smile. "I will support our family as your right-hand man, don't worry." The unwavering loyalty of a younger brother. Then the stern face of a father appeared. "This is for the long-cherished wish of our society. The successors of the other 5 kings have all agreed to participate, so you must also take the lead and join. A mission, a duty, a burden. I will keep that in mind." The memory shifted, revealing a familiar place, a valley, the scene of a steel marble competition. It replayed endlessly, a recurring trauma. "Huff, huff, big brother, the younger brother, exhausted. Take it," a steel marble offered. "But isn't this the one you found?" The younger brother's hesitation. "You go ahead first. I can find another one quickly." The generosity, the selflessness. Big Brother, a memory, insidious and crawling, followed. A sharp rock struck the back of its head. The spirit, then a living man, gasped, turning to behold the younger brother, now staring down with eyes as cold as winter's dawn. "Why you? How?" The betrayal, a visceral shock. "Damn bastard. If only you die, everything will be solved." The cruel words, striking deeper than the rock. You, utter disbelief. "You always acted superior, pretending to sympathize with me just because you had everything. The venom, the hidden resentment. I wasn't." A futile protest. "You were just born before me, that's all." With that, the younger brother struck again, the rock meeting his face, then again and again before disappearing. A surge of incandescent anger, the spirit's raw fury, washed over Mok Gyeong-un. The next vision was different, a post-mortem nightmare. Let me eat you, die, I said die." Frenzied cries of vengeful spirits rushing in, tearing, devouring. Extreme fear and utter despair consumed it. Why? Why me? Why do I have to be eaten like this, even after dying? Did I live just to suffer this much? Am I meant to be eaten? The question spiraled. I can't be eaten, and the last vestiges of its will shattered. I will devour everything. In that moment, as it was torn apart, its madness exploded, an unleashed torrent of pure, concentrated resentment. The overwhelming force of the madness threatened to consume Mok Gyeong-un. An unimaginable amount of death ki surged into his palm. The heart-wrenching wails of countless resentments echoed within his skull, threatening to shatter it, but Mok Gyeong-un held firm, continuing the art of binding. The mortals are not eternal, and the two forms are like a dream. The five aggregates are all empty, and the myriad phenomena are like an illusion, he chanted, his resolve unyielding. With a sickening crunch and a whoosh of dissipating energy, the head of a monstrous, vengeful spirit disintegrated into ash. Cheong-ryeong stood amidst the dying echoes of its scream, her hand still raised from the blow. Her eyes, glowing with a blood-red light, swept over the swirling whirlpools of spirits drawing closer, attempting to encircle her. "If you're desperate to be annihilated," she declared, her voice sharp, "then come at me as much as you want, you young ones." Her challenge paused their advance. They hesitated, as if struck by fear. She had just effortlessly obliterated 7 entities, each equivalent to a powerful yellow spirit. For a fleeting moment, she believed her display of power had given them pause. Then a tremendous surge of death ki erupted, spreading outward. Her brow furrowed. Could it be? The source was the colossal whirlpool, the very heart of this hellish transformation. Cracks, thin at first, then rapidly widening, spiderwebbed across the surface of the enormous whirlpool. The immense power it had been condensing burst forth. The other whirlpools, previously frozen in hesitation, now converged on it. "Shit!" Cheong-ryeong cursed. She had barely managed to divert their attention, and now this. Her deliberate deployment of the ghost realm, the blood boundary, seemed pointless. At that precise moment, countless chains burst forth from the newly opened cracks. They lashed out, indiscriminately ensnaring the converging whirlpools and the myriad vengeful spirits. The chains possessed immense, crushing strength. Even the spirits undergoing transformation, including a few reaching the formidable green spirit level, were instantly immobilized. "Ah! Cook!" Their pained cries echoed as they were ruthlessly dragged, still bound, into the deepening cracks. This phenomenon, Cheong-ryeong instinctively knew, signified one thing. The goo poison was finally reaching completion. It was relentlessly devouring all surrounding entities, absorbing their power, twisting them into its most terrifying form. A thick chain, a lethal projectile shot towards her. Not content with merely consuming the lesser spirits, it had now targeted Cheong-ryeong herself. "In the end, he failed?" she murmured, her gaze fixed on the incoming chain. The red thread, that fragile tether connecting her to her master, was violently shaking. This was a dire omen, a signal that his life hung by the thinnest thread. If the red thread continued to tremble, then ultimately incinerated, she too would be annihilated. The chain coiled, attempting to ensnare her. Cheong-ryeong swung her long pipe. The moment it connected, the chain's tip crumpled, igniting into wisps of burning energy. Poof! Her body, propelled by the impact, followed the disintegrating chain, launching directly towards the massive whirlpool and its ever-widening cracks. Countless more chains spewed forth, a desperate attempt to intercept her. But with each swing of her long pipe, they were repelled, shattering into nothingness. She plunged through the swirling cracks, entering the heart of the maelstrom. Inside, the key of resentment raged like a furious storm, a torrent of raw, corrupted energy. In the eye of this tempest, an entity shrouded in chains was visible. The screams of the vengeful spirits, those dragged in before her, resonated in her ears, a chorus of despair. Run away, run away, run away. The resentment has reached its end. The ominous warnings echoed. A being with deep despair's blue malice is being born. No, green malice. Its grade had ascended to the green spirit level. This was a nightmare. Such a vengeful spirit typically required a century of profound hatred to manifest, or an endless accumulation of deep resentment. Yet, it was being artificially completed, forced into existence as a goo poison by devouring its own kind. With a soft whoosh, the screaming, vengeful spirits were fully absorbed. The chains encasing the entity thickened, growing denser with every consumed soul. Cheong-ryeong scoffed, a dry, dismissive sound. "The young one is being presumptuous," she muttered, as if someone hasn't experienced that before. She planted her foot firmly on the ground. From the center of her stance, blood droplets surged upward, spreading outward in crimson ripples. As they collided with the chained entity's realm, the very space rippled, and spectral blue flames erupted, twisting like burning tree roots. Cheong-ryeong's blood-red eyes deepened further, a stark warning. "If you don't hand over that kid," she declared, her voice vibrating with cold fury, "you will be annihilated here the moment you were born, you young one." A guttural roar intensified the swirling chi. Just as Cheong-ryeong prepared to take another step, the chained entity abruptly began to twist its form, writhing violently back and forth. Condensed ki of resentment burst from the gaps in its chains, a potent chaotic energy. Clang! Clang! Was this the final stage of the goo poison's completion? As she pondered, cracks, impossibly, appeared on the very chains that enveloped the creature. A single crack. Then two. They multiplied, slowly at first, then with alarming speed. Soon the cracks consumed the chains until they shattered entirely, clattering to the ground in broken fragments. Was the completed goo poison finally revealing its true terrifying form? Cheong-ryeong raised her long pipe, bracing for the inevitable confrontation. As the last of the chains fell away, a figure emerged from the dissipating essence. It was undeniably him. Kid? Cheong-ryeong's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disbelief and alarm. A tremendous death chi pulsed from his body, so condensed it seemed on the verge of explosive release. Had the completed goo poison taken over his body, possessing him entirely? Cheong-ryeong, her voice sharp with anger, aimed her long pipe, its tip gleaming with malevolent intent. "Foolish thing," she bit out. "Were you finally devoured?" Mok Gyeong-un's lips twitched, then parted, his gaze fixed on Cheong-ryeong. "I wasn't devoured," he stated, his voice resonating with an uncanny depth. "I devoured it." A wave of chilling energy preceded him, a presence that twisted the very air as Mok Gyeong-un stepped from the lingering shadows. His form, previously obscured, now solidified, cloaked in something other than mere darkness. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the space. Cheong-ryeong, her spectral form shimmering with a barely contained fury, raised her long pipe, its tip pointed directly at the emerging figure. A sharp question, laced with the bite of long-held frustration, cut through the quiet. "Foolish thing, were you finally devoured?" Mok Gyeong-un's lips twitched upward in a faint, unsettling smile, his gaze fixing on her. He spoke, his voice clear and resonant, carrying an undeniable calm that belied his recent ordeal. "I wasn't devoured. I devoured it." A momentary blankness settled over Cheong-ryeong's ageless features, her brow furrowed, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing her eyes. The distinct cadence of his speech confirmed it was indeed him, not some corrupted husk. There was no hint of possession, only an unsettling confidence. "Why are you like that?" he asked, his head tilted slightly. She remained silent for a beat, her mind grappling with the impossible. "Did you truly devour that thing?" she finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. He merely shrugged, an almost casual gesture. "As you can see," a huff of disbelief escaped her. Truly astounding. Even with his peculiar resilience, the odds had been overwhelmingly stacked against him. Yet this brash youth, against all expectations, had succeeded. "It's just that I feel like my stomach will burst from overeating," he admitted, a slight grimace on his face. "Your stomach will burst?" she echoed, still processing the implications of his earlier declaration. "Yes. I think I ate a bit too much," he repeated, sounding like a child who had raided a forbidden pantry. He described a forceful push and pull, a struggle he had ultimately won, absorbing the creature's immense ki. The problem, however, was the sheer volume. The resentment and death, chi, within the creature far surpassed anything he had previously encountered. Cheong-ryeong frowned, a sudden clarity dawning on her. She had been a vengeful spirit for over a century, her perspective warped by her ethereal existence. She had forgotten a fundamental truth. This boy was human. The human body, she knew, was a vessel, and vessels, regardless of their inherent strength, possessed finite limits. True mastery wasn't just about accumulating internal energy, it was about expanding the very capacity of that vessel through profound enlightenment. Mok Gyeong-un, however, was fundamentally lacking in this crucial aspect. He hadn't yet grasped the methods of a true master in ki utilization. Even with his rudimentary understanding of the moon sword technique, a peerless style, his insights into swordsmanship remained shallow. Had he followed the conventional path, gaining enlightenment step by step, his capacity for internal energy would have naturally broadened. But this was not his path. Her voice took on a serious, almost urgent tone. "Expel the chi you can't handle right now." He blinked. "Pardon?" "Too much is as bad as too little," she explained, her gaze piercing. "If you accept ki to a level your body can't handle, it will instead become poison to you, kid." "Ah. Is that so?" he mused, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Yes. Then it will be better to pass on the excess chi." "What?" she asked, confusion coloring her voice. He bent down, searching the ground amidst the debris. She watched, puzzled, as he let out a small "oh" of discovery. He lifted his find. It was a skull, its face and forehead shattered, a grim memento. An old talisman, bearing the single word "chain," clung to its shattered cranium. It looked ancient, yet remained strangely intact, a testament to the spell's enduring power. Cheong-ryeong silently agreed with her own assessment. It had to be the residual spell power. Mok Gyeong-un, with a deliberate motion, peeled away the talisman. A low, resonant hum began, growing steadily louder. Cheong-ryeong watched, aghast. Not only was he ignoring her advice to expel chi, but he was actively infusing it into that macabre object. Her ghostly sight pierced the veil, revealing a cowering entity within the skull, a vengeful spirit curled in fear. "Why are you giving chi to that?" Before Cheong-ryeong could complete her bewildered question, the death chi surged into the skull. The cowering spirit within reacted, stirring to life like dried seafood revived by water. It absorbed the potent energy, expanding, solidifying. A girl emerged, her form taking shape before their eyes. She was clad in thin, delicate chains that seemed to weave around her body like ethereal clothing. Her expression was cold, distant. Her youthful face suggested an age no more than 15. Strangely, half of her hair had turned stark white, creating a striking contrast. Cheong-ryeong frowned, a scoff escaping her lips. "What?" "It was a wench." The girl's lips pressed into a tight line. Then she erupted, a fierce cry tearing from her throat. "Who are you calling a wench? This young master is a man." "What?" Cheong-ryeong raised a spectral eyebrow, utter disbelief in her tone. "You joking, right?" By any measure, it was undeniably a girl, yet the defiant declaration persisted. "This young master is a man." As the girl grew increasingly agitated in her assertion of masculinity, Cheong-ryeong simply extended a hand. The girl's ethereal body was forcibly pulled, drawn into the spectral grip. A sudden, sharp thud echoed, a sound only they could perceive. Cheong-ryeong grasped the girl by the neck, her voice dropping to a chilling whisper. How dare a young thing raise her voice to an adult? Do you want to die so badly? The girl gasped, silenced by Cheong-ryeong's overwhelming presence. Vengeful spirits could instinctively gauge each other's grade, and the raw power emanating from Cheong-ryeong left no doubt as to her superior rank. Yet, she was not one to easily yield. Even if I look like this, it's been about 15 years since I died, so in age, I'm 33, cook. Cheong-ryeong's grip tightened. She pulled the girl closer, her voice laced with an ancient weariness. If you don't want to hear young things from me, come back after living 100 more years. The girl's face hardened. That single statement revealed the vast gulf in their centuries of existence, the unbridgeable chasm of their respective grades. Cheong-ryeong turned her attention to Mok Gyeong-un, her expression still displeased. Why did you revive this one by giving her chi? You should have just killed her. She seemed useful. Useful? Cheong-ryeong scoffed. At his words, the girl frowned, her gaze flicking to Mok Gyeong-un. Who are you calling useful right now? A mere human. A sudden, suffocating grip tightened around her neck. The girl choked, though she wasn't truly suffocating. It felt like it. Who told you to open your mouth? Cheong-ryeong admonished. Mok Gyeong-un held the skull in both hands, presenting it to the girl. This is your head, right? The girl glanced at Cheong-ryeong, who offered a curt, displeased nod. Yes, the girl replied, her voice now a little softer, tinged with a strange unease. It is, so just leave it alone. Why? He asked. What's there to gain by messing with a dead person's bones? She retorted, a flicker of defiance returning. Something to gain? There is. What? At that moment, a spider web of fine cracks spread across the skull. The girl panicked, reaching out, shouting frantically. Stop! Why? Mok Gyeong-un asked again, his tone chillingly calm. No. Why are you trying to break that? The girl desperately tried to halt him, but Cheong-ryeong watched with twitching lips, a dark amusement playing on her features. She had wondered why this young man had revived the wench, but now she understood. He intended to torment her further. That skull was the very origin of the vengeful spirit. To shatter it would inflict unimaginable pain. He was truly a vicious one, she thought, a faint flicker of admiration in her spectral eyes. The girl struggled against Cheong-ryeong's unbreakable hold, attempting to rush Mok Gyeong-un. But the grade disparity was too great. She couldn't break free. And then, in Mok Gyeong-un's hands, the skull, a sickening crunch echoed, a sound that seemed to tear through the fabric of existence. A primal scream, heart-wrenching and full of agony, tore from the girl's throat. The pain of her very origin being shattered was beyond words. But then, a sight even more shocking unfolded. A faint, sizzling sound accompanied Mok Gyeong-un's actions. He didn't just crush the skull, he meticulously ground the fragments into a fine powder between his palms. Then he brought his hands to his mouth. He consumed it. Even Cheong-ryeong, with her ancient wisdom, had not anticipated this. Her eyes widened, a rare display of utter shock. Who would ever conceive of eating bone powder? Why? You! The girl shrieked, her voice raw with torment. Mok Gyeong-un remained unfazed. He continued to rub the shattered pieces, grinding them even finer, placing every last particle into his mouth. You arg! Something bizarre happened. The girl's spirit body convulsed violently, as if seized by an invisible force. A thin, red thread, shimmering with an otherworldly glow, emerged from her form. It stretched across the space, connecting directly to Mok Gyeong-un. Cheong-ryeong stared, dumbfounded. This guy. He had devoured the origin of the vengeful spirit, forcibly binding her as his supreme ruler of gluttony. It was a simple act, yet its ramifications were anything but. How could such a thing even be possible? It defied all known principles, even after witnessing it. Mok Gyeong-un's lips curled into a bitter, satisfied smile. His whimsical experiment had actually worked. He had harbored a fleeting desire to test his bizarre hypothesis, to see if his wild guess held any truth, and it had. This is... The girl's face was flushed with bewilderment as she stared at the shimmering red thread. As a vengeful spirit for so long, she had gained an innate understanding of such arcane phenomena. She recognized it instantly, the thread of a supreme ruler of gluttony, the undeniable mark of a master-servant bond. How can this? The girl lunged, futilely trying to grasp the ethereal thread. It danced beyond her reach, untouchable. How can this young master become a lowly human's supreme ruler of gluttony? She cried, flailing her hands in desperation. What's your name? Mok Gyeong-un asked, his voice steady, ignoring her frantic outburst. Shut up, you bastard. What are you to this young ma-oh? What's your name? He repeated, his gaze unwavering. The girl's furious expression abruptly softened. Her lips trembled, then, with a profound shift in her demeanor, she spoke, her voice now far gentler, utterly submissive. It's Gu Soha, master. This one? Cheong-ryeong was inwardly stunned. Even when bound as a supreme ruler of gluttony, vengeful spirits rarely revealed their true names. A name held immense power, especially for spirit bodies approaching the realm of true supreme rulers. To utter one's true name was to expose a binding point. Yet, Gyu Soha had yielded completely, her very expression transformed by the submission. Mok Gyeong-un looked at the now docile spirit. It's a good name. Thank you. Master, Gyu Soha replied, a strange, eager light in her eyes. Soha, can you become my loyal dog? Ah, that is my utmost desire, Gyu Soha responded with an intense, almost devotional expression. Cheong-ryeong clicked her tongue, unable to conceal her disbelief. This was more extreme than even a demonic beast's subservience. A green spirit, one that had nearly transcended to the blue spirit grade, was submitting to this degree. It was a total surrender, reaching into the very core of her being. Is it the influence of the strengthened death chi? A low hum of power emanated from Mok Gyeong-un, visible even to her ghostly eyes. His death chi had grown incomparably stronger. Yet, after infusing enough chi to revive Gyu Soha, it was still overflowing. Moreover, she had sensed it earlier, a subtle overlapping of his chi. Your chi is a bit strange, Cheong-ryeong ventured, her voice thoughtful. Why does it seem to be overlapping? Ah, can Cheong-ryeong see it? See what? A new mnemonic came to my mind anyway. A new mnemonic? Her interest was piqued. The 8 forms of thought destruction. What? She exclaimed, unable to hide her surprise. In the midst of all this chaos, he had conceived a new mnemonic for the 8 forms of thought destruction. What mnemonic did you come up with? She pressed. Mok Gyeong-un gestured towards Gyu Soha, almost as if she were a prop in his demonstration. The myriad phenomena are like an illusion. The acupoints have no extremes. The 2 forms are like a dream. The 5 aggregates are all empty. The myriad phenomena are an illusion. The 5 aggregates are all empty. Cheong-ryeong's spectral pupils constricted. This guy, he realized, a mnemonic I didn't know. Her shock stemmed from the undeniable truth of his words. What Mok Gyeong-un had just recited was a form she had never encountered, a mnemonic completely unknown to her. Even she, blessed with extraordinary talent, had only ever grasped 4 forms of the 8 forms of thought destruction. She cleared her throat, attempting to conceal her inner excitement. Ahem. This is a form I haven't mastered. What profound principle does it hold? I became able to disperse the donjon into 2 places. What? I could disperse the key near the Baihue acupoint in the head and near the center close to the heart. Cheong-ryeong's jaw dropped. A profound expression of disbelief washed over her. Mok Gyeong-un, in his innocence, wouldn't understand the magnitude of his own revelation. Ha! All martial artists, until they pierced the veil of enlightenment, were bound by the limitations of the lower donjon. But the moment they achieved true insight, transcending that wall, they opened the middle donjon. Those who had achieved such a feat were exceedingly rare, even within the vast martial world. Yet this boy, without any true enlightenment, claimed his middle donjon had opened, all thanks to a profound principle he had stumbled upon within the 8 forms of thought destruction. It was an anomaly, a terrifying, beautiful impossibility. A stillness, thick and heavy as mountain mist, permeated the chamber. The air, usually redolent with the faint scent of potent herbs and aged paper, now carried a subtle, sour tang of unease. Candles, arranged meticulously in the ancient pattern of the 5 elements, flickered in the oppressive quiet, casting dancing shadows upon the walls where countless talismans clung like protective leaves. Within their glowing circle, a white-haired Taoist priest sat, his eyes closed in deep meditation. His breath was even, his form unmoving, a picture of profound serenity. Then, without warning, a sharp jolt lanced through his being, a violent recoil that tore through his inner peace. His eyes snapped open, pupils dilated, a raw bewilderment etched across his sharp features. "It can't be!" The whisper was barely audible, a fractured thought against the rising tide of dread. An insidious premonition, cold and swift, coiled in his gut. He rose from his cushion, the fluid grace of his movements belying the turmoil within. His footsteps were silent on the cold stone floor as he moved through the corridor, each stride propelled by a growing sense of urgency. The backlash he had just experienced was undeniable, a clear sign that a powerful spell he had meticulously woven had been shattered. Yet the thought defied logic. His technique, designed to protect the very essence of the goo poison he cultivated, was supposed to be unbreakable, even by the finished product itself. The corridor ended abruptly at a heavy, unassuming door. He reached for the handle, his hand trembling imperceptibly. The dread intensified, a suffocating cloak around him. He pushed the door inward. His breath hitched. The air in this room crackled with a disrupted energy, heavy and acrid. Scrolled upon the floor was a complex barrier formation, its lines still faintly luminous. At its heart sat a thick earthenware jar, normally bound tight with talismans and heavy chains. But now the scene was one of chaos. The talisman, once meticulously affixed, lay torn and scattered, its potent energy dissipated. The robust chains, crafted to withstand immense strain, were brutally sundered, their metal fractured as if by an invisible, crushing force. A tremor of pure rage ran through the old man. His white beard, usually serene, quivered violently. He stepped forward, his trembling hands reaching for the severed chains, picking up a broken link. He closed his eyes, focusing his shattered concentration, and began to chant, the ancient words vibrating with a desperate plea. Connecting the origin to the profound realm, the supreme beings without masters, urgent as commanded. The chains in his grip vibrated in response, a faint echo of the violent disruption they had endured. He poured his will into the incantation, demanding answers. What had happened? The image swam into his mind, a gruesome, ethereal tableau of countless vengeful spirits, tearing at one another, transforming through a brutal, self-devouring process. This was the goo poison's cultivation, a process he monitored several times daily, a horrifying testament to his craft. It had been normal moments ago. What could possibly have changed? Then a new horror materialized in his mind's eye, a formless, utterly black presence, swathed in an almost palpable aura of death, streaking towards the nascent goo poison. The supreme beings without masters, urgent as commanded, he intoned again, infusing every ounce of his spell power into the desperate command. He needed to know. He needed to understand the variable, the invasive force that had dared to interfere with his life's work. Suddenly, a searing agony ripped through his left eye. A hot, wet trickle of blood burst forth, staining his cheek. At the same instant, the broken chains in his hand disintegrated, crumbling into fine powder that drifted silently to the floor. The old man staggered backward, pushed by an unseen force, a guttural gasp escaping his lips. He wiped the bloody tears from his face with the back of his sleeve, his mind reeling. What was that? A vicious entity, saturated with death qi, had brutally intervened. It was not a dead soul, not a mere vengeful spirit. It was something else entirely. Could a man-eating beast have somehow breached the formidable talisman barrier of the cliff, then entered this sacred space? If such a creature could break through the protective wards and touch a vengeful spirit, already transformed and elevated in grade, even if not fully completed, it would surely surpass a monstrous beast. The thought ignited a terrifying new possibility. Could a demonic beast, or even a devil beast, have appeared? No. A devil beast was too powerful. Its presence would have been immediately noticeable, no matter the distance. If a creature of that caliber manifested here, Even a powerful martial sect would face catastrophic losses. A low growl rumbled in the old man's chest. Even if it wasn't a devil beast, the anger was unbearable. His goo poison, 15 years in the making, the culmination of his arduous dedication, had been reduced to ash in an instant. With a furious roar, he slammed the door open, the sound echoing through the quiet halls. He strode down the corridor, his eyes blazing with a cold fury. There, kneeling patiently, was Jo-i-gong. The diviner's face lit up with a hopeful smile as his master emerged. "Master, no! Pavilion, master!" Jo-i-gong exclaimed, his voice laced with relief and expectation. The sharp-featured white-haired man was In-seo-ok, the esteemed master of the primal killing, the sorcery consultation arm of the Heaven and Earth Society. He was also Jo-i-gong's revered master and a sun-level sorcerer, one of only 14 practitioners to achieve the highest echelon of sorcery. Excluding the Six Directions' supreme ruler, the pinnacle of the divine sun-moon technique, In-seo-ok was unrivaled in his mastery of sorcery. "Pavilion master," Jo-i-gong ventured, his gaze expectant. "Are you reporting this to the sect leader?" He hoped for a reprieve, a chance to save the young man he had identified as a talent. In-seo-ok, his face terrifyingly grim, shook his head. Jo-i-gong's heart sank, a wave of disappointment washing over him. The young man in the valley was the most promising talent he had ever encountered, and he had hoped his master would intervene on his behalf. But In-seo-ok's next words shattered any lingering hope of a swift resolution for the young man. "That's not the problem right now." Jo-i-gong blinked, confusion clouding his features. "What do you mean by that?" "A high-grade man-eating beast has sprinkled ashes on the fully cooked rice," In-seo-ok stated, his voice tight with suppressed fury. "Don't tell me," Jo-i-gong stammered, a chilling realization dawning on him. "This chief's spirit supreme ruler goo poison technique has been broken." A wave of shock slammed into Jo-i-gong. He stared, wide-eyed, at his master. The spirit supreme ruler goo poison technique was the culmination of In-seo-ok's 15 years of relentless devotion. It was his masterpiece, his life's work. "How can such a thing happen?" Jo-i-gong whispered, disbelief warring with dread. "No matter how much of a man-eating beast it is, breaking through the chief's barrier and entering, it means it's above a demonic beast," In-seo-ok finished, his voice raw. "A demonic beast!" The words struck Jo-i-gong like a physical blow. A man-eating beast that surpassed even vicious and monstrous beasts was a terrifying concept. A monstrous beast required a sorcerer's intervention to handle. A demonic beast, depending on its type, could challenge even a sorcerer titled Bangwol. A sudden, chilling thought pierced through Jo-i-gong's despair. The cliff valley where the spirit supreme ruler goo poison technique was being cultivated was directly adjacent to the corpse blood valley. Even if the goo poison hadn't been destroyed, the appearance of a demonic beast in that mountain range was a situation that demanded immediate and decisive action. In-seo-ok clicked his tongue, a sound of profound frustration. "Immediately prepare talismans and ritual instruments. Get ready to go to the corpse blood valley." A strange flicker of relief ignited within Jo-i-gong. Though his master was consumed by anger over the destruction of his goo poison, this crisis could be used as a justification to dismantle the barriers of the corpse blood valley. Such an action would mean the cessation of the brutal trials and, by extension, salvation for the gifted young man he had sought to protect. Far from the sorcerer's concerns, Mok Gyeong-un sat, his body a conduit for the swirling death key. He had entered reverse cycling, his very essence absorbing the lingering, oppressive energy that clung to the cliff face. Gyu-soha, the newly designated supreme ruler of gluttony, watched him with wide, spectral eyes, a keen interest sparking within her. Her ghostly perception revealed Mok Gyeong-un's ki flowing in reverse, an unnatural current, drawing in the very essence of death instead of the vibrant energies of yang or life. A lingering question, one she had harbored since their first encounter, resurfaced. Was her master truly a living human? It seemed utterly impossible for a human to absorb such a colossal amount of death ki and remain unscathed. Yet he sat there, remarkably composed. Gyu-soha's gaze drifted to the side. Cheong-ryeong reclined on a large rock, a long pipe held casually between her fingers, a wisp of smoke curling from its bowl. Ju Soha hesitated, then cautiously approached the green spirit. Ahem. Excuse me, she began, her voice a reedy whisper. Cheong-ryeong's eyes narrowed, a flash of annoyance in their depths. Excuse me. Call me Eo, she paused, catching herself. To be addressed as Eorushin, a term of respect for an elder by this slip of a girl, however ancient the girl's true essence might be, was surprisingly embarrassing. Just call me Iani. Gyu-soha's spectral brow furrowed. This what? Cheong-ryeong snapped, exhaling a plume of smoke. Are you going to impudently blurt out, "These young masters again? This one is a man, yo." Gyu-soha trailed off, a hint of desperation in her tone. Cheong-ryeong's eyes gleamed with irritation. If you keep spouting nonsense, I'll just annihilate you, whether that guy made you his supreme ruler of gluttony or not. No. This one is... Gyu-soha began again, but Cheong-ryeong cut her off, raising her long pipe with a decisive snap. Gyu-soha flinched, her eyes clamping shut, and her hands shot up in a gesture of surrender. Her half-white hair, peculiar as it was, framed a face that looked no older than 15. Don't talk nonsense in front of me, Cheong-ryeong declared, a dismissive wave of her hand urging Gyu-soha to retreat. Disk. If you utter one more word about being a man or whatever, I won't show any mercy. Gyu-soha, defeated and unable to ask her question, slunk away, her pride wounded. At that moment, Mok Gyeong-un's eyes opened, a soft sigh escaping his lips. He had finished absorbing the chi. Phew! Did you absorb everything? Cheong-ryeong inquired, her tone softened slightly. Yes. Gathering the remaining chi was quite a lot. The death chi clinging to the cliff, once absorbed, amounted to an equivalent of nearly 50 lives. It was far more efficient than tracking and eliminating individuals across the mountain. A sense of stability settled over his internal energy. Cheong-ryeong clicked her tongue, observing Mok Gyeong-un. He had finally assimilated such a profound amount of death ki through his reverse cycling. The internal energy within his middle and lower danjon had now reached and even surpassed the perfection of the peak, pushing into a realm beyond. It was absurd. His understanding of ki was virtually non-existent. He couldn't even wield sword ki or explosive force. Yet his internal energy level was at the absolute extreme. This paradox was a direct consequence of the strange and profound principles of his 8 forms of thought destruction. His internal energy was like having the extreme peak doubled. The potential of his middle donjon, however, remained largely unknown, as it could only be truly grasped after surpassing a fundamental barrier. Even Cheong-ryeong, with all her ancient wisdom, found it difficult to definitively gauge Mok Gyeong-un's exact level. She was undeniably curious about just how high-level experts this peculiar human could truly contend with. How much time has passed? Mok Gyeong-un asked, breaking the silence. Since the master has been here, Gyu-soha began tentatively. If you're asking how much time is left until dawn, there's not even an hour left. At most, about 3/4, Cheong-ryeong interjected, cutting off Gyu-soha's hesitant response. Mok Gyeong-un looked up at the night sky. Indeed, the inky blackness had begun to yield to a pale indigo hue, signaling the approaching dawn. His plan had been disrupted. He had spent more time here than anticipated. Still, it was not a loss. He had gathered far more death ki than by hunting down boys searching for flags, and he had acquired a powerful green spirit as a companion. But time was now a pressing concern. He licked his lips, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. It's unfortunate. What is? Cheong-ryeong asked. I was trying to leave only 7, but 3/4 of an hour is too tight. Cheong-ryeong clicked her tongue. His objectives were always so unique. Originally, it was simply about securing more death chi, but now it seemed his aim was to drastically reduce the total number of participants. Instead of that, Cheong-ryeong advised, you should find the flag and teammates first. He needed to find a flag containing the other half of the sword technique mnemonic, not just any flag. He also needed to identify individuals worthy of becoming his teammates. He had to hurry. Mok Gyeong-un reached into his bosom, pulling out a handful of slender, dark objects. I have to insert it again. It was the needles of the Golden Gate lock, the very ones he had removed from his spinal acupoints. Leaving them out would arouse suspicion. "I can do that for you," Cheong-ryeong offered, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Pardon?" Mok Gyeong-un started to question, but Cheong-ryeong had already moved. With a swift, almost imperceptible wave of her hand, the needles leaped from his palm. Puck, puck, puck! They simultaneously pierced the meridian points along his spine. "Hiss," Mok Gyeong-un hissed, a sharp intake of breath. Inserting the needles was as excruciating as removing them. The pain of one was bad enough, but having them all pierce his body at once tested even his formidable endurance. Cheong-ryeong looked at him with a satisfied expression. "I can do this much for you, although a tool is needed to remove them. But you—" Her gaze drifted to Mok Gyeong-un's chest, near where his middle donjon lay. Unlike his lower donjon, which had been severed and scattered when his meridians were blocked, his middle donjon remained vibrantly alive. A quarter of an hour later, the indigo sky had lightened further, betraying the rapid approach of dawn. Mok Gyeong-un found a group of 8 boys, gathered around a flag they had secured. The corpses of 9 other boys lay scattered around them, grim testament to their successful defense. One of the boys, recognizing Mok Gyeong-un, burst into scornful laughter. "Hey, where did you sell your teammates, and why are you wandering alone?" His companions joined in, their sneers echoing through the clearing. "Ha ha ha ha." That's right. They exuded an arrogant confidence, knowing that dawn was close, and Mok Gyeong-un alone posed no threat to their numbers. The boy who had initiated the taunts waved his hand dismissively. "We're full here, so get lost. You're full here." "Are you deaf?" I said. "Get lost quickly." Right. There's only about 2 key left until dawn, so I don't know if you can even find a group worth accepting." Thud. The boy's taunts died in his throat. "Irk!" He collapsed mid-sentence, a sickening thud echoing through the air. Mok Gyeong-un stood in the posture of one who had just thrown something. A rock, jagged and blood-stained, was embedded deep in the center of the boy's face. He had died instantly. "What is this?" The remaining boys stared, their faces draining of color. "How is this possible when we can't even use internal energy?" Disbelief and terror contorted their features. Who could have imagined that a mere rock, thrown by hand, could kill a person instantly, especially in a place where internal energy was sealed? Mok Gyeong-un's lips curled upward in a chilling smirk, his eyes glinting. "Oh dear, a spot opened up in your group." The air crackled with unspoken tension, thick and heavy like the pre-dawn mist. Mok Gyeong-un's voice, a casual mockery, sliced through it, leaving the huddled boys dumbfounded. "Ah, there's an empty spot in that garden." Who could have fathomed such cold calculation? In their desperate vigil for sunrise, a teammate had fallen, struck down by a rock, by one of their own. Mok Gyeong-un's gaze swept over their shocked faces. "What will you do?" Silence answered him. Only 2 hours remained until the sun climbed above the distant peaks, a cruel deadline ticking away. Perhaps, if luck favored them, a stray soul might wander into their predicament, a replacement for the fallen. But the odds felt slender, almost non-existent. "Shit!" A whisper escaped one boy, raw and full of despair. Another muttered, "What should we do?" Anger simmered within them, a furious resentment for the life so carelessly extinguished. This boy, their companion through shared fear and hardship, was gone. Yet a chilling logic demanded their attention. The killer had acted, in his twisted mind, with a purpose. He believed it was the right decision. 2 hours still remain, one of them offered, grasping at a fragile hope. "That's true, but what if no one comes?" The question hung in the air, a dark cloud. A third boy, resignation coloring his voice, spoke up. "He's right. Let's just accept him." But the protest died in his throat. "Do you think that guy will give up?" The unspoken threat resonated. "Still, even if it's just this once, we have a sense of loyalty to this guy who's been with us." The words were barely out before Mok Gyeong-un moved. His hand reached for the ground, fingers closing around a stone. He wasn't content with one. He gathered a handful, then another, his arms laden with jagged missiles. The boy who had been speaking swallowed hard, his voice suddenly dry. "Let's accept him. That bastard picked up rocks." That crazy bastard. The silent curse was universal. His intent was clear. Refuse him, and the stones would fly again, aimed at their own heads this time. Acceptance was not a choice, but a surrender. They were forced to take him into their ranks, a venomous addition to their already desperate team. Mok Gyeong-un, oblivious to their simmering hatred, smiled. It was a bright, disarming smile that somehow felt more menacing than a snarl. "Thanks, everyone. You're all so kind." The words were a fresh wound, twisting the knife of their forced compliance. Every one of them cursed him inward, a silent chorus of loathing. If only he hadn't appeared, they might have achieved a collective victory. They had forged a fragile unity, learned the bitter lesson of teamwork, only to have it corrupted by this madman. Now, they were compelled to drag this monster across the finish line. A soft rustle of fabric broke the strained quiet. Mok Gyeong-un's hand rested on the flagpole. One boy, his emotions reined in with immense effort, managed a warning. "Be careful." Even with 2 hours left, the flag must remain intact. Mok Gyeong-un merely nodded. "I know. If you know, then don't touch it." The boy's voice was strained, a desperate plea. Yet Mok Gyeong-un's fingers continued to brush the fabric, a slow, deliberate caress. The boy seethed, but no words escaped. The memory of Mok Gyeong-un's brutal strength in the steel bead competition, the terrifying accuracy of his rock thrown just moments ago, silenced any impulse to challenge him. A silent vow formed in his mind. Once the Golden Gate lock are released, he thought, I'll deal with this guy. He clung to the whispered rumors of the gate's initial part, the promise of freedom. Then Mok Gyeong-un spoke, his voice cutting through the quiet. "By the way, did you find any other flags besides this one?" "Other flags?" The boy looked confused, shaking his head. They had been lucky. They found this flag, defended it against 2 relentless teams. "We never lost and protected this flag," he said, a note of hard-won pride in his voice. Mok Gyeong-un sighed, a long, exasperated sound. "Whew!" The pride instantly curdled into indignation. "What? What's with that sigh?" "You lost not only your flag, but also your teammates." One boy, his temper finally snapping, confronted him. Mok Gyeong-un shook his head, then approached. The boy flinched, a primal instinct, but forced himself to stand his ground. "What? What are you trying to do? Are you in a bad mood?" "But it's the truth, and although we had no choice but to accept you, to pass the gate, fighting is unnecessary, at least. Smack, crack." The sound was sickeningly final. The boy's neck twisted at an unnatural angle. His words ceased mid-sentence, his life extinguishing with a faint gurgle. He collapsed, a lifeless heap. The other boy stared, paralyzed by horror. This crazy bastard, is he really insane?" a trembling voice stammered. "No matter what, this is too much. The sun will rise soon, so what will we do if you kill a teammate like this? Are you in your right mind?" Thwack, crack. Mok Gyeong-un's hand moved again, striking the neck of the shouting boy. The brutal snap of muscle and bone echoed in the silence. The boy's neck bent, his dying groan a choked sound. He, too, joined the fallen. 2 bodies now lay still, victims of this terrifying, unhinged individual. The remaining boys were frozen in pure consternation. He's lost it. What the... is he doing? Did he truly have no intention of passing the gate? As these desperate questions raced through their minds, Mok Gyeong-un reached out again. Smack! Eek! One boy, caught flat-footed, couldn't dodge. His companions' minds went blank. Survival. That was the only thought. Run, no matter what. They fled, abandoning the caught boy without a second thought. Mok Gyeong-un, with terrifying precision, hurled a rock with all his might at one of the fleeing forms. Thwack! Irk! The stone pierced the back of the running boy's head. He crumpled, dead, before he hit the ground. Thud! Mok Gyeong-un picked up another rock, but the 3 survivors had already scattered, vanishing into the thick bushes. Getting all of them will be tough, he mused. Then, just deal with 2 of them for me. He spoke to no one in particular, then threw the rock with full force into the rustling green. A scream of anguish tore through the air, followed by a dull thud. He had hit his mark. The captured boy, trembling violently, stammered, Why are you doing this? You know what will happen if we can't pass the gate. If you kill teammates like this, you guys won't be able to pass anyway." Mok Gyeong-un's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "What? The boy stared, confused. I said you won't pass. What kind of nonsense is that? If only you hadn't done this. You were so focused on protecting it that you didn't properly examine the flag. What are you? Smack! Mok Gyeong-un's hands closed around the boy's head. Fear blossomed in the boy's eyes. Spare, crack! Mok Gyeong-un snapped his neck without a flicker of emotion. Then he gripped the pole of the flag still stuck in the ground. He crumpled it with one hand, a sharp, metallic crunch. Things have gotten a bit pressing, he muttered, surveying the wreckage he had wrought. Only 1 hour remained. In that fleeting time, he needed to find a different kind of flag. The characters etched onto this crumpled pole were, he now knew, identical to the ones he had already committed to memory. This was useless. Meanwhile, halfway up the mountain, the air thrummed with a different kind of tension. Sunrise was close, a golden glow already bleeding across the eastern sky. 2 teams, exhausted but unyielding, faced each other in a brutal stalemate. Rough, ragged breaths filled the quiet. This was no ordinary flag defense. Both sides possessed flags. One team, led by Manhwa of the Demon Fire Hall and Mok Gyeong-un, the youngest scion of the Yeom Sword Manor, had their flag firmly planted into a blocked mountain wall. They had formed a resolute semicircular formation, a living shield. The opposing force kept 2 of their own guarding their flag, carrying it with them, while the remaining 6 hammered relentlessly against the defensive arc. This isn't good, Mok Gyeong-un thought, his gaze fixed on the shirtless figure wielding a stone axe. Patterns of unique design covered his body. This was Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. That bastards, Mok Gyeong-un cursed inwardly. He couldn't comprehend the continued assault. One of Yeom Ga's boys, he noticed, had a broken flagpole tucked into his belt. That could only mean one thing. They already found both types, so why are they doing this? It defied all logic. They were risking too much. A single casualty on either side would mean failure for the gate. To endure such a brutal fight, simply to diminish their numbers, seemed utterly foolish. Mok Gyeong-un leaned closer, whispering to the boys beside him and to Manhwa. Let's hold out just a little longer. His teammates nodded, comprehension in their eyes. Once the sun rose, this senseless conflict would cease. But Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave merely sneered at their strategy. You think you can just hold out? If that was their hope, it was a grave miscalculation. His side possessed a foolproof tactic, one already proven devastatingly effective. 3 other teams had fallen, consumed by the monstrous creature they commanded. Yeom Ga raised his left hand. The signal. The 2 boys guarding their flag suddenly erupted in ear-splitting screams. Not only them, but the boys engaged in combat also roared louder, their voices echoing wildly through the mountain air. What the? Crazy. Why are they suddenly doing that? The defending team exchanged bewildered glances. The shouts were unnervingly loud, carrying far across the terrain. What kind of ploy is this? Manhwa of the Demon Fire Hall narrowed her eyes, glaring at Yeom Ga, who wore a smug smirk. The moment that scrawny bastard raised his hand, the screaming began. There had to be an ulterior motive. Escalates. She couldn't simply remain passive. Defending the flag wasn't enough. It would be better, she decided, to take down 1 or 2 of them. That would surely force them to retreat. Her hand tightened around the hilt of her sharply honed stone dagger. Don't any of you step outside the semicircular formation, no matter what, she said in a low, dangerous voice. What? You can't mean, Mok Gyeong-un tried to dissuade her, his voice urgent. But it was too late. Swoosh! Manhwa had already surged forward, a blur of motion dashing towards one of the attacking boys. Though her energy points were blocked, her incredible dagger skills were legendary, defying imagination for a woman. When she moved, they instinctively recoiled, desperate to maintain distance. This was the moment. I've been waiting for this. Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave didn't miss his opening. He charged, not towards Manhwa but at the boys forming the semicircular formation. Manhwa anticipated his move, shifting her direction with fluid grace. I knew it. She was the strongest among them. Someone like Yeom Ga would inevitably try to lure her away, then strike at her vulnerable companions. Whoosh! Manhwa threw her stone dagger. It spun through the air, whistling towards Yeom Ga's retreating back. One of Yeom Ga's boys, anticipating the strike, threw himself into its path. Stab! Irk! The stone dagger buried itself between the boy's left chest and shoulder. But the sacrifice bought Yeom Ga precious time. Unhindered, he swung his stone axe down towards the head of one of the boys in the semicircular formation. No! Mok Gyeong-un screamed, sliding forward, aiming for Yeom Ga's legs. Yeom Ga chuckled, a chilling sound. He threw his body to the side, then hurled the stone axe with surprising force. Huh? Yeom Ga's true target wasn't the boys. This is bad. It was the flag, the very object they were desperately protecting. The hurled stone axe spun, a deadly projectile aimed at the flagpole. It was sheer dumb luck. The stone axe grazed the flagpole, bouncing off with a dull thud. It left a small nick, a minor wound, but the pole remained intact. A collective sigh of relief escaped the defending boys. Phew! Had it snapped, their entire strategy would have crumbled. They would have been forced to abandon defense and launch a desperate, all-out assault for the enemy's flag. I'll kill him! Swoosh! Tap, tap, tap. Moha Rang of the Demon Fire Hall dashed towards Yeom Ga, her movements a furious blur. Compared to the other boys, this one had to die, and now. He was the most troublesome, using his wits, resorting to any means necessary. Demon Fire Hall girl, are you saying you want to take me on? Yeom Ga, who had rolled and scrambled back to his feet after throwing the axe, took a fighting stance as Moha Rang charged. Regardless of her gender, she was one of the opponents he most desired to face. Right at that moment, a strange, guttural sound echoed from somewhere. Thump, thump. Both Moha Rang and Yeom Ga froze mid-charge. The boys from both sides, locked in desperate combat, also ceased their movements. Thud, thud. The ground itself began to shake, a tremor that spoke of something massive approaching. The sky had brightened considerably now, and a giant shadow, indistinct at first, began to form within the bushes. Then Yeom Ga's boys moved in unison, as if on cue. They ran towards the two boys guarding their flag, seeking shelter behind them. Rustle, rustle, a massive creature, grotesque and terrifying, emerged from behind them. Everyone's faces stiffened in horror. Slurp! The creature drooled, thick ropes of saliva hanging from its maw. It had blue fur on its head, sharp pointed ears, and vicious hook-shaped claws. Its form was unmistakably wolf-like, but its size, What is that? What the is this? It was nearly 3 times larger than any ordinary wolf, a monstrous beast that looked capable of swallowing an ox whole. A tremendous, oppressive pressure emanated from its very presence. Mok Gyeong-un felt a cold sweat prickle his skin. It got even bigger. He had encountered this monster once before while wandering the mountain, barely escaping with his life, but it had grown, terrifyingly so. What had transpired in the interim? That's the monster wolf, another boy from Mok Gyeong-un's team whispered, his voice laced with pure terror. 2 of their teammates had already fallen victim to this thing. They knew its deadly nature all too well. Tap, 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 Yeom Ga ran, sticking close to where their flag was. Seeing this, the boys in Moha Rang's semicircular formation wore puzzled expressions. Yeom Ga's team was closer to the monster than they were. In this situation, where any rational being would abandon the flag and flee for their lives, Yeom Ga's team clung to theirs, determined to defend it at all costs. What's going on? As they pondered this strange behavior, the unthinkable happened. Swoosh! The monster wolf, which they assumed would attack Yeom Ga's team first, swerved. It avoided them, moving instead towards Mok Gyeong-un and Moha Rang's group, the very formation protecting their flag. What the? Why was that monster passing them by, targeting Moha Rang's team? Was it discriminating between people? The flag? But one person had roughly guessed the reason. It was Moha Rang. She found it incredibly odd that despite the appearance of such a monster, Yeom Ga's team wasn't on guard, instead huddling around their flag. A hunch, a sudden, terrifying realization struck her. Stick close to the flag, she screamed. At that moment, the monster wolf charged, a tremendous speed that defied its massive body. It hurtled towards them, who were already backing up towards their flag. Ah! Eek! Run! Everyone frantically threw themselves aside, whether they were close to the flag or not. But one boy, caught in the monstrous surge, was trampled. Thud! Ack! Blood spewed from the trampled boy's mouth. The sheer weight of that giant body was one thing, but the hook-shaped claws had dug into his back, tearing his internal organs. Shit. Seeing this, Mok Gyeong-un twisted his body, halting his desperate escape. His instinct screamed for him to run, to flee, but that boy had accepted him as a teammate, shared life and death with him. He couldn't abandon him. Smack! Mok Gyeong-un snatched a rock from the ground, hurling it at the monster's face. Thwack! The monster wolf hit in the face, violently jerked its head around. Queek! Queek! It let out a pig-like squeal, a sound that sent goosebumps crawling over their skin. The monster wolf's eyes, filled with cold, predatory intent, locked directly onto Mok Gyeong-un. Shit. Had he made a foolish choice? Should he have just run away? Right as this thought solidified, swoosh! A figure leaped high, landing with impossible grace on the monster wolf's back. It was Mo-ha-rang. She scrambled up its neck, trying to drive her sharply honed stone dagger into its eye. But before her dagger could pierce its flesh, the monster wolf violently swiped at the area above its head with an opposite front paw. She tried to jump off and dodge, but the massive claw grazed her back. Flesh tore where the hook-shaped claws connected, and blood instantly soaked her clothes. Then, thud, thud, thud. She tumbled, rolling several times down the slope. Ha! Rang! Mok Gyeong-un's cry was raw with desperation. After tumbling, Mo-ha-rang staggered, attempting to rise. But such an injury, compounded by her sealed energy points and lack of protection, made it nearly impossible. Thud! One of her knees buckled, sinking to the ground. Yeom Ga's teammates, huddled gleefully around their flag, laughed mockingly. This was it. This was their borrowed murder tactic, a method that had already turned 3 teams into food for that monstrous wolf. Don't feel too resentful, Demon Firehall wench. Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave curled his lips into a cruel smile. Here, there was no such thing as fair play. The true victor was the one who survived, by any means necessary, eliminating all rivals. Growl, growl. The monster wolf stalked towards her, baring its fangs, a terrifying display. This was no mere beast. It intended to fill her with terror, slowly, deliberately taking one step at a time. Huff Huff Mo-ha-rang bit her lower lip, her gaze fixed on the brightening sky. The sun will rise soon. With only about an hour left, was she truly going to lose her life like this, without passing the gate? Her vision blurred, obscured by the blood soaking her back. Thud, thud, thud. The monster wolf closed the distance, its massive form looming directly over her. Mok Gyeong-un and another boy could be seen shouting, desperately trying to distract it, but it was too late. She was its next prey. Do I look tasty to you? Grit. Mo-ha-rang clenched her teeth, forcing herself to stand. Even if she died, she would stab this monstrous wolf just once. She would not die resenting her fate. Right at that moment, as if it had been waiting, the monster wolf lunged. Swoosh! Come! But then, it happened. Smack! The monster wolf's colossal body froze mid-lunge. Rather than stopping willingly, it was as if an invisible force had bound it, its 2 front paws lifted and fixed in place. Mo-ha-rang had no idea what was happening. What? What's happening to it? As everyone stared in bewildered confusion, something bizarre appeared in Mo-ha-rang's blurring vision. Numerous chains, thick and dark, had erupted from the very ground, restraining the monster wolf's entire body. Clang! Clang! Quee! The monster wolf howled, struggling violently, trying to break free. But the chains tightened even further, constricting it mercilessly, preventing any movement. What were these chains? As she wrestled with the impossible question, a voice, calm and clear, echoed from nearby. Ah, what a relief! To think everything I need is gathered here. Mo-ha-rang turned her head towards the sound. There, she saw him, Mok Gyeong-un. He walked forward, the corners of his mouth turned up in a confident, almost predatory smile. But right beside him, something else moved. A transparent, yet strangely blurry figure. Shudder. It was a girl. Chains were wrapped around her entire body, and half of her hair was pure white. The moment their eyes met, A wave of profound goosebumps washed over Mohaharang's already battered body. A grotesque, giant wolf, its immense body frozen mid-lunge, hung suspended in the air before Moharang. Its massive claws stretched, fangs bared in a silent snarl. The scene was utterly bizarre. A collective gasp escaped the onlookers. Their eyes stretched wide with disbelief. From the rustling undergrowth nearby, a calm voice drifted out. "Ah, what a relief. To think everything I need is gathered here." A shiver traced down the spines of the young warriors. Their heads snapped towards the sound. The figure emerging from the dense bushes was unmistakably Mok Gyeong-un. His face, lean and sharp, was instantly recognizable, a stark reminder of his brutal prowess in the steel bead competition. Mok Gyeong-un watched him, a silent, almost imperceptible sigh of relief escaping his lips. He harbored no affection for the man, yet a deep part of him hadn't wished for such a demise in this desolate place. His relief was short-lived. The timing of Mok Gyeong-un's leisurely appearance was catastrophic. "Idiot! Where are your teammates? Why are you alone?" The silent question burned in Mok Gyeong-un's mind. They were meant to be an 8-person unit, guarding their flag until dawn. Instead, this lone wolf appeared, utterly unconcerned as a monstrous beast rampaged nearby. His luck, it seemed, was truly abysmal. Still, there was no time to dwell on his cousin's bewildering behavior. Mok Gyeong-un launched himself forward, his boots pounding the damp earth. He sprinted towards Moharang. The wolf remained inexplicably still. This was their only chance to save her. "Hey, you crazy monster wolf!" Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave roared, his voice cutting through the tense air. "What are you doing right now?" Mok Gyeong-un's arrival meant little to him. Yeom Ga cared only for the beast, which had been executing their strategy perfectly, now inexplicably stuck. He needed it to finish its work, to slaughter these remaining rivals. A guttural howl tore through the stillness. It vibrated in their bones, yet the wolf did not move. Its bristling fur, previously alive with predatory menace, lay flattened against its hide. "What is it doing?" Yeom Ga muttered, frustration simmering. In that fleeting moment, Mok Gyeong-un slid, a desperate maneuver pushing Moha-rang out of the wolf's frozen reach. He caught her shoulders as she stumbled, preventing her fall. "Get a grip," he urged, his voice tight with desperation. Her eyes were unfocused, her expression blank. "Do you see this?" she whispered, her voice faint. "See what?" he snapped, exasperated. She was gesturing with her eyes towards the behemoth. Of course, he could see it. He just couldn't understand why it stood so utterly still. "It's bound by chains," she murmured, incomprehensible words spilling from her lips. Mok Gyeong-un's brow furrowed. "Chains? What nonsense are you spouting?" He felt the dampness on her back. A cold dread seeped into him. He bit his lip. She was delirious, seeing things from the agonizing blood loss. "Moha!" Rang, "Hold on. We've endured so much. If you collapse now, it's over. I'm still conscious." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Then walk." He hoisted her up, urging her forward. She looked towards Mok Gyeong-un, her eyes wide with a strange, dawning comprehension. Was she truly hallucinating? But then, an unsettling sight caught her attention. A blurry, half-white-haired girl stood beside Mok Gyeong-un, indistinct and undeniably non-human. The blurry girl's lips moved, though no sound reached Moha-rang. Her pupils trembled. As a former member of the Demon Fire Hall, renowned for their assassin techniques, Moha-rang possessed the rare skill of lip-reading. She saw the words "form." "That person seems to be able to see me?" A chill, colder than any wound, pierced her. "Mok Gyeong-un too," muttered something, his gaze fixed on Moha-rang with an intriguing expression. "Oh, is that so?" Confusion swirled in Moha-rang's fading mind. Was it blood loss? Or was she truly witnessing a conversation between Mok Gyeong-un and this spectral entity? Suddenly, a thunderous howl ripped through the air. It vibrated like a shockwave, forcing all the boys to clap their hands over their ears in agony. W. What was that sound? It was a roar, no less powerful than a lion's, imbued with raw inner force. The ground beneath the monster wolf quaked violently, sinking nearly 5 zhang. Then the frozen monster wolf moved. Yes, that's how it should be. Yeom Ga, still covering his ears, inwardly exulted. They were within the flag's protective range. The others were not. They were meant to perish. Shit. Mok Gyeong-un cursed, supporting Mo Ha-rang. His chance had vanished. A metallic shriek rent the air. Dozens of chains erupted from the earth, not directly beneath the wolf, but from a distance of 5 zhang around it. They snaked, coiled, and slammed into the demon wolf's body, binding it once more. The beast howled, a guttural shriek of pure rage and pain. The restraining force was immense. The chains tightened, pulling the demon wolf's head violently to the ground. Its massive skull slammed into the earth with a sickening thud. Huh? Mok Gyeong-un stared, bewildered. You really can't see it? Mo Ha-rang asked, her voice barely audible. What are you talking about? At a time like this, his words died in his throat. Mok Gyeong-un had already reached the prone demon wolf. Its chin, its entire body, was pinned to the ground, utterly immobile. I should repay you for targeting what's mine, right? His voice was unnervingly calm. He seized the demon wolf's upper teat with both hands. He pressed his foot into the inside of its mouth. A horrifying ripping sound filled the air. He tore its palate. The demon wolf thrashed wildly, its mouth forcibly opened, its head twisting in agony. But the chains held fast. It could not move. Tear after tear, a grotesque sound of tearing flesh and bone. The demon wolf's wailing, its bloody tears streaming, ceased abruptly. The upper part of its head was completely ripped off. A collective, silent horror seized everyone present. Who could have imagined that the terrifying monster wolf, which had devoured so many, would meet such a gruesome instant end? This bastard, what the... Mok Gyeong-un, closest to the atrocity, was the most shocked. Could this truly be the same cowardly man he knew? Mok Gyeong-un casually tossed aside the torn, bloody remains of the demon wolf's snout and head. A heavy thud echoed as it hit the ground. Phew! He straightened, drenched in the demon wolf's dark blood. A chilling silence descended. What was this man? Why did the monster wolf become utterly immobile and die so instantly upon his appearance? And that strength. How could he tear apart such a beast when their inner force was sealed and useless? Confusion was a thick, suffocating cloud. One person, however, snapped out of it quickly. Shit. It was Yeom Ga. The unbelievable outcome had shocked him too, but the how was irrelevant. The sun would soon rise. They had to defend their flag at all costs. They needed to retreat now. We have to fall back, Yeom Ga whispered to his teammates. They understood. They carefully tried to lift the massive iron lump of their flag. Bind them all, Mok Gyeong-un murmured, his voice soft, almost a sigh. A metallic clatter, though unseen, erupted from the ground. Chains, invisible but palpable, erupted from the earth. They wrapped around every boy present, instantly restraining them. A symphony of muffled cries, of desperate struggles, filled the air. What is this? Something is restraining my body? The boys writhed. An invisible rope, no, a cold, unyielding chain bound them. They had no understanding. Yeom Ga struggled with all his might. His inner force was sealed. Even his trained outer strength, formidable as it was, could not rival whatever power held him. It was a futile waste of energy. His body tilted, his knees buckling, sending him crashing to the ground. Humiliation burned in Yeom Ga's face. You son of a bitch, what the hell did you do? Mok Gyeong-un calmly approached the flag, the one right before the mountain wall. The eyes of the boys who had been defending it, who had fled from the wolf, trembled. Was he targeting their flag? Mok Gyeong-un examined the flagpole. Ah, this one too, he muttered, then broke it without hesitation. A sharp snap echoed in the silent clearing. No, ooh, you bastard. The boys screamed, a collective wail of despair. They had abandoned the flag to escape the wolf, but its destruction meant elimination from this gate. They hadn't expected Mok Gyeong-un to do such a thing. Mok Gyeong-un's jaw clenched. You son of a bitch! Rage threatened to consume him. He wanted to charge, to punch Mok Gyeong-un, but his body remained utterly still, bound by an invisible force. This won't do either. Mok Gyeong-un clicked his tongue, then approached Yeom Ga. Are you going to break this one too? Yeom Ga roared, veins bulging in his neck. Mok Gyeong-un chuckled, shaking his head. He examined the flagpole. A frown creased his brow. Don't tell me this one too? Cheong-ryeong's voice, unseen and unheard by anyone but Mok Gyeong-un, echoed in his mind. As she suspected, the characters were identical. Mok Gyeong-un licked his lips, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. What a coincidence! He hadn't expected all 3 flags he'd found to bear the same specific characters he had memorized. The sun was truly about to break the horizon. Time was running out. Even if he hurried, there wouldn't be enough time to secure a new flag. What will you do? Command that Soha girl to search for flags nearby right now. Mok Gyeong-un started to nod, then paused. Another thought occurred to him. Perhaps it would be better to confirm something first. He opened his mouth to question Yeom Ga and his bound teammates. By any chance, I'll tell you the remaining characters, so let's make a deal. Moharang's voice, weak but resolute, cut through the air. Mok Gyeong-un turned his head towards her. Her face was deathly pale, yet she mustered a final surge of strength. It seems you figured it out, he said, an intrigued expression on his face. I checked it twice. Even she had initially believed Mok Gyeong-un had destroyed their flag simply to eliminate them, but seeing his frustrated frown as he examined Yeom Ga's flag, she understood. He was searching for a different type of flag, one with specific characters. Characters? Yeom Ga belatedly grasped the implication. He frantically shouted at Mok Gyeong-un. Let's make a deal. A deal? Yeah. I also know the other characters, and we even have an intact flag and teammates here. It looks like you don't have teammates, but if you join us, you can pass too. Yeom Ga thought this was a stroke of luck. He had been furious when his strategy was ruined. Yet, in the end, this man had done their dirty work. He had broken the other team's flag. If they just accepted him, the Demon Firehall group would naturally be eliminated. Wait a minute, one of Yeom Ga's teammates stammered, flustered. We're all fine. If we accept that guy, shut up. Yeom Ga snapped at him, his voice sharp. He turned back to Mok Gyeong-un. I'll take care of one guy myself, so will you make the deal or not? You need teammates, a flag, and characters anyway, don't you? He sounded confident. Mok Gyeong-un couldn't refuse. It was the most rational proposal. But then, Mok Gyeong-un reached for the waist of one of the boys. He grabbed the broken flagpole. The characters are here. Yeom Ga was momentarily stunned. Carrying the pole with the other set of characters had backfired. Some of his team hadn't memorized all the characters, so he hadn't discarded it. Who could have known? That's ours too, Yeom Ga stammered. So you'll make a deal with us, right? Huh? Who? This is mine, Mok Gyeong-un stated nonchalantly, waving the flag he had just claimed. Yeom Ga's forehead bulged with frustration. And this flag here is also mine. Mok Gyeong-un lifted the heavy flag with one hand. The boy's eyes widened. Even with their inner force sealed, it took 2 of them to lift it. Yet he hoisted it with ease. Mok Gyeong-un moved away, holding the flag with a satisfied expression. Stop. I said it's mine. Mok Gyeong-un's mocking tone infuriated Yeom Ga, but he forced himself to suppress it. Why, you still need teammates. Ah, that's right. Mok Gyeong-un nodded, as if convinced. Then Mok Gyeong-un, still supporting the weakening Moha-rang, cried out, Mok Gyeong-un, don't trust that cowardly and weak bastard. They'll stab you in the back. If that's the case, accept us as teammates instead, he shouted on Moha-rang's behalf, her condition worsening. His pride warred with desperation. To ask Mok Gyeong-un for help was humiliating, but there was no other way. The sun would rise soon. To survive, pride meant nothing. What bullshit are you spouting? Yeom Ga countered. Everything this guy collected was what we defended. What have you bastards done to demand to be accepted? You have the nerve to run your mouth after doing such cowardly things, even using a monster like that without any skill? Mok Gyeong-un. Ignore what that guy says and, hey, no, did you say Mok Gyeong-un? If you help me this time, I will definitely repay the favor. There are still gates left, so being indebted to me, someone from Vermilion's slaughter cave, shouldn't be bad. Don't listen to him, although we may be half-brothers. Shut up, you bastard. Everyone was shouting now, their voices a confusing cacophony. They pleaded with Mok Gyeong-un, who held the flag, for a spot on his team. Mok Gyeong-un clapped his hands. The sharp sound cut through the noise. All eyes snapped to him. He held their lifeline. They had no choice but to focus. Mok Gyeong-un's lips curved into a slight smile. This is quite a dilemma. With everyone wanting to join me like this, I'd like to accept all of you as teammates if I could, but rules are rules. A collective gulp. He had made his decision. Mok Gyeong stared, hope flickering within him. Despite their animosity, they were family. He silently prayed Mok Gyeong-un would choose him. In a situation like this, it seems unfair to prioritize and look after certain individuals. Mok Gyeong-un glanced to the side, nodding his head slightly. So let's do this instead. Huh? My body. The restrained boys stirred, a strange internal tremor shaking them. Mok Gyeong-un's smile widened, revealing a chilling gleam in his eyes. Kill each other. What? I'll accept the 7 of you who survive as my teammates. In an instant, every single face froze in dawning horror. The faint glow of dawn painted the eastern sky, a soft crimson against the fading stars. A chilling silence had settled over the tense group of young men. They stood in a ragged semicircle, their gazes fixed on the lone figure who had emerged from the shadows. His words hung in the air, cold and utterly preposterous. I'll accept the 7 of you who survive as my teammates. A collective gasp escaped them. Disbelief washed over their exhausted faces. They had endured the night, battling and defending, only for this enigmatic individual to appear and demand their annihilation. Kill each other, he commanded. When the sun was about to rise, fury simmered beneath their weariness. They had stayed up all night, guarding a forgotten flag, their bodies aching, their minds frayed. This stranger, this Mok Gyeong-un, toyed with their desperate situation. It was worse than a mere game. Mok Gyeong, his own anger flaring, stepped forward, ready to unleash a torrent of outrage. The words caught in his throat. He saw Mok Gyeong-un's face. A wide, unsettling smile stretched across the man's lips. His eyes gleamed with a chilling delight. It was not a jest. He genuinely wished for them to kill each other. A shiver of profound dread traced its way down Mok Gyeong's spine. Goosebumps prickled his skin. This was not the boy he remembered. He felt as if he stared into the face of true evil. Mok Gyeong-un gestured towards the horizon. You have too much leisure. The crimson light grew stronger. The sun would soon crest the mountains. Time was running out. A desperate, primal surge of anger overcame one boy. He roared, a guttural sound of pure fury. The stone axe, taken from the vermilion slaughter cave, was clutched in his hand. His eyes burned with madness. He charged. He didn't care about the rising sun. He only wanted to smash that mocking face. An invisible force slammed into him. Chains, unseen but undeniably present, snapped taut. He froze 3 steps from Mok Gyeong-un. The boy struggled, bewildered. He was bound by nothing visible. He thrashed, his muscles screaming against the unseen restraint. From the periphery, a chilling voice spoke. Master, shall I kill him? The voice belonged to a girl, the green-souled Ju Soha. She had extended her hand toward the restrained boy. Mok Gyeong-un shook his head. There was no need to reveal Ju Soha's full power yet. That secret could wait. The boy, his face now pale, trembled. His initial rage had cooled into stark terror. He pleaded. Let me go. This isn't right. Mok Gyeong-un plucked the stone axe from the boy's trembling grip. He held it aloft, ready to strike. The boy shrieked, fear overriding everything else. Eek! I was wrong. I'll do as you say. You heat it up like an iron pot and cool down quickly, Mok Gyeong-un remarked, his voice devoid of pity. Please spare me. Then you should have targeted someone other than me. The axe descended. A wet, sickening thud echoed through the valley. A grotesque gurgle escaped the boy's lips. His head, crushed by the blunt stone, fell limp. The remaining boys watched, horror etched onto their faces. They had killed before. They had taken lives to survive the earlier gates. That had been a desperate act. This, however, was different. Mok Gyeong-un was smiling. He watched the dying boy with a bright, joyful expression. He was enjoying the act of killing. He was a monster. Overwhelmed, none dared challenge him further. He was utterly beyond their comprehension. Their will to fight him shattered. Then a sudden sharp crack rent the air. Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave snapped the neck of the boy next to him. His former follower gasped, then slumped. Yeom Ga's companions stared, aghast. "You!" "Fuck," Yeom Ga spat, his voice harsh. "Are you going to play friendship games after coming this far?" He surveyed the remaining boys. His eyes were cold, calculating. "If you bastards want to live too, it's best to do as that guy says." There was no denying it. Charging Mok Gyeong-un was suicide. The only path to survival was to eliminate each other. 7 spots remained. A frenzy erupted. Former allies lunged at one another. Desperate hands found throats. Stone blades flashed. "Sorry." Gasp. "Why you? Shut up. Is this the time to argue about that?" They had entered this competition killing each other. Friendship held no sway here. Survival was the only currency. They had to be one of the 7. Mok Gyeong-un clutched Mo-ha-rang's shoulders, supporting her fragile weight. His teeth bit into his lip, drawing blood. His heart sank. Everything felt futile. The camaraderie they had forged through 3 hours of shared terror shattered in an instant. Comrades who had sworn to stick together now turned on each other. He had believed in a baseline of human decency, even in this brutal world. The screams filled the valley. Die! 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 Please spare me. I helped you too." So what? They killed without hesitation. Their eyes had changed. They were no longer human. They were beasts. Mok Gyeong-un's tattered nails dug deeper into his palm. This was all because of that one man. That bastard had twisted their struggle for survival into a bloody pandemonium. He had stripped them of their humanity, leaving only the primal instinct to prey on the weak. He wanted to strike Mok Gyeong-un down. He wanted to wipe that horrifying smile from his face, but he couldn't. His energy points remained sealed. Mok Gyeong-un had used some strange illusionary technique at Yeon Mok's sword manor. He had no way to fight him. A fleeting, horrifying thought flickered through Mok Gyeong-un's mind. His gaze fell on Mo-ha-rang. He quickly shook his head. No, he had almost considered killing her. What had he become? A figure approached through the swirling dust. His eyes were wide, murderous. It was Ma Sang. "Huff, huff, Ma Sang," Mok Gyeong-un whispered, his voice laced with disbelief. Ma Sang was one of the 3 who had survived with him from the beginning. His hand gripped one of Mo-ha-rang's stone daggers. Mok Gyeong-un's jaw clenched. He knew there was no persuading Ma Sang. He had stained his hands with too much blood already. Fury churned within him. Ma Sang swept his gaze over the scene, his breathing ragged. He spoke, his voice strained. "Gyeong-un, cut off Ha-rang's breath, what?" Mok Gyeong-un's voice rose, a tremor of shock in it. Mo-ha-rang had saved them countless times. She had been injured helping her teammates. He couldn't. "No, let's leave Ha-rang. We can fight each other instead." "Huff, huff, stop talking nonsense and kill her." I said no. Ma Sang exploded. "You son of a bitch, she won't survive with her injuries anyway. In that case, even if we have to kill her, you and I should survive." His voice was a raw wail of desperation. Mok Gyeong-un muttered, the words heavy on his tongue. "I know. Damn it, I know." He couldn't do it. He could fight another man, kill for survival, but not this. Not Mo-ha-rang, lying helpless and dazed. "Then I'll kill her," Ma Sang declared. He lunged. Mok Gyeong-un quickly lowered Mo-ha-rang to the ground. He moved to block Ma Sang. The man was beyond reason. He had already killed another boy. He would kill the injured girl without hesitation. Mok Gyeong-un, despite his sealed energy, moved with the speed of a genius. He threw himself at Ma Sang, grabbing his wrist with a seizing hand technique. He twisted. A sharp crack echoed. "Let go of that!" Ma Sang screamed. "If you don't let go, your arm will break," Mok Gyeong-un warned. Ma Sang, calm down. "Let's join forces and deal with the guys from the other team instead," Ma Sang sneered. Arg. What are you going to do when the sun is rising? And even if it's not me, it's already too late." Mok Gyeong-un's head snapped up. Another boy, one from their own team, charged Mo-ha-rang. His face was a mask of apology, but his hand gripped a crude rock. He intended to smash her head. "Stop!" Mok Gyeong-un roared. It was too late. The boy's arm was already swinging down. The rock was a hair's breadth from Mo Harang's skull. Then the boy froze. An unseen force enveloped him. He stood rigid, stones suspended in the air. T! This is the familiar alien sensation. Mok Gyeong-un collapsed onto the ground, gasping. His breathing was ragged, hyperventilating. The sudden dissipation of extreme tension left him reeling. Mo Harang had almost died. The restrained boy, still frozen, shouted, "What are you doing? Didn't you say you'd give us a chance by fighting each other?" He thought Mok Gyeong-un was reneging on his promise. A soft clap echoed. Mok Gyeong-un looked up. Mok Gyeong-un stood there, clapping his hands. A bright smile lit his face. "Congratulations! What? The spots are all filled." The boy swallowed. He looked around, his gaze moving from Mok Gyeong-un and Ma Sang to Mo Harang and himself to Yeom Ga and his 2 surviving cronies. 7. They had been so consumed by the killing they had lost count. Only 7 remained. A collective sigh of relief swept through the exhausted survivors. Ha! We survived! Exhilaration surged through them, washing away the horror of the massacre. They had survived. That was all that mattered. The brutal slaughter they had just endured, orchestrated by Mok Gyeong-un, faded from their minds. Mok Gyeong-un's lips twitched. He found their swift forgetfulness amusing. The sun finally peeked over the horizon, bathing the corpse blood valley in crimson light. The deep shadows receded. The gruesome scene was illuminated. Footfalls echoed in the distance. Warriors, adorned with bright red belts, appeared like phantoms. They moved with swift, silent grace, their lightfoot skills impressive. They surveyed the scene, checking the tattered flags, counting the survivors. Their expressions stiffened, their eyes fixed on a monstrous form. A giant wolf, a beast demon wolf, lay dead on the ground. Its snout was torn, its immense body unmoving. "Who on earth?" one warrior whispered. The beast had not been released to be killed. It had been unleashed as a final obstacle. Its purpose was to challenge their survival, not to be summarily executed. A profound, unsettling mystery hung in the air. The air hung heavy with a profound silence, broken only by the whispers of the wind rustling through the jagged peaks. A monstrous beast, a demon wolf of impossible size, lay sprawled in the dust. Its snout, a grotesque ruin, had been violently torn from its lower jaw. This was not a test of endurance. It was a desperate fight for survival, yet the creature was dead. A gasp, barely audible, escaped someone's lips. It was unbelievable. The red-belted warriors, formidable figures even in their present state of weariness, stood transfixed. Disbelief contorted their seasoned faces. One of them, a man whose red belt marked him as a leader, broke the spell. His voice, hoarse, cut through the quiet. Who did this? Every head among the exhausted boys, who had barely survived the brutal night, turned in unison. Their gazes converged on a single figure. He was drenched in blood, head to toe, a crimson tableau against the stark morning light. Yet, despite the gore, an undeniable handsomeness distinguished him. This was Mok Gyeong-un. The red-belted warriors exchanged knowing glances. Their interest in him had already been piqued by his previous performance in the steel bead competition. This, however, transcended mere interest. It was shock. "Senior, does this even make sense?" another warrior murmured, his voice laced with confusion. The sentiment was universally shared. Even a warrior with full access to their energy points would struggle immensely against a beast of this magnitude. To fell it with blocked meridians seemed an impossibility. One senior warrior, his eyes sharp and discerning, scanned Mok Gyeong-un. The boy's eyes, unlike the dull, haggard stares of his peers, shimmered with an unusual vitality. There was no sign of exhaustion. A suspicion, cold and precise, began to form in the senior warrior's mind. He stepped forward. "You, come here." Mok Gyeong-un's response was a casual shrug. "Is there a problem?" A flicker of annoyance crossed the warrior's face. "Who said you could talk back?" Without another word, Mok Gyeong-un approached, his movements fluid despite the dried blood stiffening his clothes. The senior warrior grabbed his wrist, his grip firm, and began to scrutinize the boy's pulse. He needed to confirm the blockade of energy points. The result was unexpected. They were indeed blocked. The realization solidified the warrior's bewilderment. How could such a talent emerge from a place like Yeonmok's Sword Manor, a renowned but ultimately minor martial arts family? This unprecedented feat, the first of its kind in the history of Corpse Blood Valley's operations, would undoubtedly ignite widespread controversy. Meanwhile, at the beast's carcass, the robe-wearing diviner stared with dumbfounded eyes. The demon wolf, its powerful head severed from its jaw, presented a gruesome sight. Just moments before dawn, he had sent a signal for its return, a mystical call through the thinning mist. When no response came, a chilling premonition had driven him to ascend the mountain. "Is this possible?" a deep voice rumbled beside him. The diviner spun around. Standing there, observing the carnage with an unsettling stillness, was the Lord of Corpse Blood Valley, his face obscured by a demonic mask. He had arrived late, having received a report from the red-belted warriors, and now beheld the impossible. The demon wolf's purpose had been an ordeal, a crucible to forge survival instincts in the boys. Its death defied all expectations. The diviner fumbled for words, his mind reeling. He could offer no coherent explanation. Had a seasoned warrior achieved this, he might have spoken of extraordinary prowess. This was different. A more troubling thought wormed its way into his mind: the demon wolf's state. It had reached full maturity, a transformation from a fierce beast to a monstrous one, far sooner than anticipated. This had been a monstrous beast, capable of overwhelming even first-rate masters when working in concert. How could a mere boy with sealed energy points have accomplished this? The diviner hesitated, grappling with the implications. Reporting the full truth would expose a lapse in his judgment, for deploying a monstrous beast against the boys, even with the protective flag, would have been pure massacre. He chose his words carefully. "To be honest, even I don't understand how they caught it." "You don't understand?" The demon mask lord's voice was devoid of inflection. "In your opinion, which part of the human body possesses the greatest strength?" the diviner countered, attempting to shift the focus. "The mouth?" the lord surmised, his tone flat. "Precisely. The biting force is unparalleled. Beasts, unlike humans, are equipped with jaws designed to crush bone. If they had merely pierced its core with something sharp, I could understand. But to tear it apart? That requires a force beyond even the beast's own incredible strength." The demon mask lord nodded slowly, a silent acknowledgement. "I see. Who did it?" "Please tell me," the diviner pressed, curiosity finally overcoming his caution. "That's enough," the lord interrupted, his voice firm. He had heard what he needed. There was no need for further details. Take that corpse with you, as the diviner, with the assistance of several warriors, began the grim task of moving the beast's remains. The senior warrior from earlier approached the demon mask lord. "I checked," he reported, his brow furrowed with lingering disbelief. "Are the Golden Gate locks still in place?" the lord asked. "Yes." His true energy couldn't circulate. Yet he did that. "Calling him strong is an understatement," the senior warrior stated, a rare note of awe in his voice. "He might be even stronger than that child of the esoteric realm gate." The demon mask lord hummed thoughtfully. He recalled his own youthful battles against fierce beasts. Even with his experience, the boy's feat seemed impossible without inner energy. He needed to observe him closely. There was something about this boy, something inexplicable that transcended his background from a famous martial arts family. "Have the rest all gathered?" the lord inquired, changing the subject. "Yes," the senior warrior confirmed. "What's the total number?" "The total number of survivors is 259. Out of 468, nearly half had perished." The demon mask lord nodded, his expression unreadable beneath the mask, and began to ascend the mountain ridge. At the summit, a large clearing unfolded, filled with rows of boys. They were divided into two distinct groups. On the right, 200 boys sat, their faces marked by a palpable sense of relief. On the left, a smaller cluster of 59 boys huddled together, their faces pale, bodies trembling. They were the ones who had failed to secure a flag by sunrise. Dread pulsed in their veins. They anticipated death. The demon mask lord stood before them, a towering figure of authority. "I congratulate you on successfully defending the flags. The 59 pieces of trash on the left side have also worked hard to survive the night without being able to do anything." His words, meant as congratulations, carried a cutting edge. The 59 boys barely registered the taunt. They simply craved life. As the Lord's masked gaze swept over them, their hearts hammered against their ribs. They braced for the executioner's swift blade. "The 59 pieces of trash," the demon mask lord continued, his voice echoing across the clearing. "Follow that diviner down the mountain." A ripple of shock passed through the group. Their eyes widened. They had expected immediate death. To be told to follow the diviner down the mountain away from the valley of death was utterly bewildering. Could they truly be spared? A murmur, low and hopeful, spread through the 59 boys. Their faces, moments ago etched with terror, began to illuminate with dawning relief, even smiles. The red-belted warriors, observing this, shook their heads with a grim understanding. To follow the diviner was far from a reprieve. They would not spoil the boys' temporary joy with the grim truth. "Shut up and get lost," the demon mask lord barked, his impatience evident. The celebrating boys instantly quieted, though their smiles remained, a flicker of hope in their exhausted eyes. Thus the 59 boys, their temporary reprieve feeling like a miracle, began their descent. They joined the procession that was gathering the dead, pulling a cart laden with bodies and the massive carcass of the demon wolf. A few among the 200 survivors on the right side, those who had seen the knowing expressions of the red-belted warriors, felt a chill. They recognized the grim implications that the departing boys blissfully ignored. They were fortunate not to be among them. The demon mask lord turned his attention back to the remaining 200 boys. Now, it's time for another selection. The word selection initially brought a wave of relief, quickly followed by confusion. Not all, however, were puzzled. Some teams, having anticipated this, inwardly cheered. The demon mask lord gestured to the left side of the clearing. Those who have grasped the true meaning of the flags move to the left side. "True meaning?" the boys murmured, their confusion deepening. What did he mean? A few boys, understanding dawning in their eyes, began to rise. With a triumphant air, they strode towards the left side. Mok Gyeong-un's team joined them without hesitation. Seeing this, some of the unsure boys started to follow, thinking it better to move than to remain ignorant. "If you follow without knowing the true meaning and get caught," the demon mask lord's voice cut through the air, sharp and clear, "you'll be executed on the spot." The warning instantly froze those who were moving without understanding. They faltered, then returned to their original positions. Once again the boys were divided. Out of the 200, 80 now stood on the left, while 100A remained on the right. What the hell is this true meaning? Anxiety rippled through the 120 boys on the right. Had they failed this test too? Was death still a possibility? The demon mask lord's gaze swept over the remaining group. "This is the limit for you lot." His words were grave, chilling. "But be grateful. You lot have now become low-ranking warriors of the Heaven and Earth Society." A collective gasp swept through the 120 boys. Their eyes widened in disbelief. They had expected death, not this. Relief, overwhelming and profound, washed over them. Many collapsed to the ground, their legs giving out from the sheer emotional release. A wave of exhausted exhalations, ragged breaths, filled the air. They had survived Corpse Blood Valley, a place known for its deadly trials. Yet, for about half of them, the relief was quickly tempered by disappointment. Damn it, a low-ranking warrior. Their ambitions soared far beyond mere survival. They had risked their lives to be chosen for something greater. They had failed. The 80 boys on the left who had understood the true meaning watched the others with a mixture of disdain and smug satisfaction. These stupid things, they thought, had taken the test too simplistically. They, on the other hand, had earned the right to advance. The demon mask lord reached into his robes, pulling out a silver tablet etched with the character 2. A spark of recognition ignited in the eyes of a few, most notably Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. This was the badge of the top scorer. If they were to determine the best among them, this was it. They had gathered information prior, knowing the badge conferred significant advantages. But how would it be decided? 80 people had figured out the flag's deeper meaning. The demon mask lord mused aloud, his voice thoughtful. How should I determine the top scorer? Should it be the one who memorized the verse? At this, Yeom Ga and a few others straightened, their shoulders perking up. They had been diligent, memorizing the verses from both types of flags early on. They were confident. Or should it be the one who can best demonstrate the verse? The Demon Mask Lord's next question sent a ripple of anxiety through the confident few. They had memorized the verses amidst the chaos of battle, defending and seizing flags throughout the night. Practice had been impossible. Even Yeom Ga and Yeom Ga of the esoteric realm gate, though capable of demonstrating the stances, were uncertain of perfect execution on their first try. The conditions were the same for everyone, they reasoned. They would attempt it if asked. "Good," the Demon Mask Lord finally declared. "Let's do it this way. Is there anyone among you who can properly explain what kind of verse is on the flag?" Before the question had fully settled in the air, a boy eagerly shot his hand up and stood. "It's a sword technique," he shouted, a hopeful grin on his face. Snickers erupted around him. Anyone who had seen or memorized the verse knew it was a sword technique. The boy, seeing the Demon Mask Lord's cold gaze, realized his mistake and quietly sat down. Then, Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave raised his hand. "It's a swift sword art where offense and defense are integrated, targeting 3 acupoints on the center line and 6 major acupoints, and the variation of stances is diverse depending on its use." A collective sigh of regret swept through the other boys, particularly Yan Wu-wung of the Esoteric Realm Gate. Yeom Ga's explanation was concise, accurate, and comprehensive. No further words were needed. Yeom Ga glanced at Mok Gyeong-un and Yan Wu-wung, a triumphant gleam in his eyes. He felt certain the badge was his. The Demon Mask Lord spoke. "To think you figured it out to that extent in the midst of all this, not bad." Yeom Ga's heart soared. He had it. The Lord's reaction confirmed his accuracy. Even Mok-Gyeong-un, though uninterested in the top spot, felt a flicker of surprise. Yeom Ga's insight was almost identical to his own. The boy might be cunning, but his martial talent was undeniable. What would he truly be capable of once his Golden Gate lock was removed? The Demon Mask Lord exchanged a glance with his senior captain, who nodded. These boys had fought for 3 grueling hours without rest. To glean such understanding was indeed impressive. The Demon Mask Lord held out the silver tablet. "Good. This gate." Before he could finish, a clear voice cut through the air. "Isn't it a sword formation rather than just a sword technique?" The Demon Mask Lord froze, his brow furrowing beneath the mask. His head whipped around, searching for the speaker. It was Mok Gyeong-un. A silent click of the tongue escaped the Demon Mask Lord's lips. He was dumbfounded. The sword technique's stances were too simple to discern whether it was a sword formation from mere verses. Only a highly skilled swordsman would recognize such a subtlety. Yet this boy, a mere greenhorn, had done it. Yeom Ga, who had been sneering at Mok Gyeong-un's seemingly outlandish claim, suddenly felt a cold dread. The Demon Mask Lord's reaction was not one of dismissal, but profound shock. An unsettling premonition prickled Yeom Ga's senses, a cold dread that coiled within him. Mok Gyeong-un's casual mention of a sword formation had elicited an unexpected reaction. It shouldn't have mattered. Yet the subtle shift in the air, the sudden gravitas, spoke volumes. No, it couldn't be. He tried to deny it, to push the thought from his mind. A sword formation, by its very nature, demanded rigid rules and intricate, synchronized movements. It required an adaptation of verses, a visualization of paths that interlocked with precision, something beyond the grasp of ordinary understanding. To discern such a thing from mere written verses, without having seen it performed, was an impossible feat for most. One would need the insight of a true master, someone of his father's caliber, the revered valley master of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. Was that boy truly such a prodigious talent? Yeom Ga hoped not. He fervently wished he was wrong. However, the Demon Mask's voice sliced through his silent denial. It was a serious, probing tone. "Why do you think it's a sword formation?" Mok Gyeong-un, in turn, offered his explanation with an unnerving nonchalance. "The stances adhere to the basics, each one arranged so their movement paths don't overlap. I thought it could be demonstrated as a sword formation." The Demon Mask's eyes narrowed, a slow, contemplative gesture. "The movement paths don't overlap. Even with the ability to mentally visualize a sword technique multiple times, or to physically demonstrate it, tracing the precise paths of movement to coalesce them into a formation was an extraordinary task. It was far more than simply observing one's own actions. The demon mask stroked his chin, a faint hum escaping him. Truthfully, it was hard to fathom. A youth of merely 17 or 18 years possessing an insight that rivaled the pinnacle of swordsmanship seemed fantastical. Of course, innate talent could explain much. Yet, the demon mask's gaze drifted to Mok Gyeong-un's hands. They told a different story. These were not the hands of an exceptional swordsman. A true practitioner's thumb, index finger, and pinky naturally adapted their shape over years of gripping a blade. Mok Gyeong-un's palms, however, bore no such mark, not even the slightest callus on his thumbs. These hands were not those of a master. Yet, such profound insight had sprung from him. If he had received tutelage from a sword master, it might make sense. But no such figure could possibly exist within the confines of Corpse Blood Valley. The enigma deepened. Could this young man's discernment truly be on par with a grandmaster? The demon mask, fixedly staring at Mok Gyeong-un, posed another question, a final test. If a sword formation were to be deployed with this verse, how many people do you think would be most efficient? It was already impressive that he had merely identified it as a sword formation. To calculate its optimal deployment was another matter entirely. Mok Gyeong-un paused, a flicker of thought in his eyes before his answer cut through the tension. 8. A spark of interest ignited in the demon mask's gaze. He had accurately stated the bare minimum required to deploy such a formation. Mok Gyeong-un continued, his voice calm. 16 or 32 should also be possible. A soft, almost inaudible gasp escaped the demon mask. To have merely stated 8 would have been remarkable. To also correctly identify the other viable numbers for the formation was beyond mere insight. "Do you think it would be difficult to go beyond that?" the demon mask probed. "If they were to combine, the formation would start to overlap from that point on," Mok Gyeong-un affirmed. The demon mask clicked his tongue, a genuine expression of admiration. The formation in question was the Heaven and Earth, 8 resonance formation, an absolute technique based on the variations of the 8 trigrams. It had been developed by the previous society leader of the Heaven and Earth Society, designed to allow 16 to 32 swordsmen to launch a devastating combined attack. This young man had even divined that. Did he truly possess the eyes and insight of a swordsman who had reached the pinnacle? If so, the demon mask found himself profoundly intrigued. His curiosity was piqued. The fact that Mok Gyeong-un hailed from an upright martial arts family suddenly seemed utterly irrelevant. The demon mask licked his lips, a primal desire to claim such talent for himself stirring within him. Yet, this was not the time. The examination was ongoing. He swiftly tossed something towards Mok Gyeong-un. Smack! It landed neatly in his palm. Mok Gyeong-un opened his hand to reveal a silver tablet, the character 2 etched upon its surface. "You are also the second-place scorer," the demon mask announced. A murmur rippled through the gathered boys. Mok Gyeong-un had snatched the second position, following the first-place candidate. Who was this enigmatic figure? What was his lineage, that he could so effortlessly claim such a high rank? Grit. Yeom Ga's teeth gnashed together. He had assumed second place was his by right. He was one of the 3 most promising disciples from the major factions. Now he felt utterly humiliated. Mok Gyeong-un. The name seared itself into his memory. He knew he wouldn't feel right until he had exacted his revenge, somehow. Just wait. Once the Golden Gate lock, which sealed their inner energy, was removed, the tables would turn. That guy would regret his insolence. As the boys processed the news, the demon mask's voice boomed again. "I sincerely congratulate the 80 of you who have passed the second gate. You have gained the qualifications to become middle-rank warriors of our Heaven and Earth Society." Middle-rank warriors. A wave of exhilaration swept through some of the boys. From this rank onwards, their treatment within the Heaven and Earth Society would drastically improve. Those with exceptional skills could even gain the qualification to lead units of low-rank warriors. The demon mask continued, his voice resonating through the tired yet re-energized youths. To be a middle-rank warrior, one must possess the ability to lead a unit and to execute a sword formation. As you just heard, the verse on the flag describes a sword technique that requires at least 8 people to deploy as a sword formation. Everyone's eyes flickered with renewed interest. The examination wasn't merely a series of cruel trials. The initial division into teams of 8 had, from the very beginning, served a purpose. Now, if you have a keen eye, you should be able to guess what the third gate is. A silence stretched. Then the demon mask singled out a boy. "You there?" The boy abruptly stood, snapping to attention. "Yes. What do you think the third gate is?" "That's," the boy stammered, unsure. "Speak properly," the demon mask urged. "It's for the 8 members who passed to deploy a sword formation and eliminate the target," the boy blurted out. Most of the others nodded, agreeing with his deduction. At this point, it was the only logical conclusion. The demon mask motioned for him to sit. Correct. The third gate is for a team of 8 to perfectly deploy a sword formation and eliminate the target. A collective sigh of relief passed through the boys. The first 2 gates had forced them to inflict harm upon each other, draining them both mentally and physically. The thought of enduring such an ordeal again was abhorrent. However, there are conditions and restrictions here as well. Conditions and restrictions? A ripple of apprehension spread through the group. First, you will be given a day of rest. During that time, decide on a team leader. Of course, you must also form a team of 8, including the team leader. Huh. The boys furrowed their brows. This meant that the original 8 who had defended the flag weren't necessarily bound to remain together. Teams could be reshuffled. Great! A few openly cheered, their faces brightening. Among them were Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave and Mok Gyeong-un. Indeed, most who had silently dreaded being reunited with Mok Gyeong-un shared a similar sentiment of relief. By the way, the one who becomes the team leader naturally passes the third gate regardless of the sword formation test, and swoosh! The demon mask produced a square wooden tablet resembling an identity plate from his robes. The words, "Unit Leader," were boldly engraved upon its surface. Oh, could it be? A unit leader's plate? The boys' gazes fixated on the wooden tablet. The demon mask chuckled, a low, guttural sound. They will also be given the qualification of a unit leader. A collective intake of breath. The boys could barely contain their excitement, though their mouths remained shut. Only a select few among the middle-rank warriors, those with the most senior qualifications, could aspire to become unit leaders. But here, they were deciding unit leaders now? A question, however, began to coalesce in their minds as their excitement subsided. Then, won't everyone want to be the team leader? Who among them, having come this far, wouldn't covet such a position? A sigh of distress naturally mingled with the boys' breaths. They had hoped this gate might be less brutal, but it seemed they were destined to fight amongst themselves once more. Damn it. 80 people, yet only 8 would qualify as leaders. Even that seemed uncertain. If someone died during the struggle for the team leader position, that entire team would be eliminated. This gate, by no means, could be considered easier than the second. The demon mask's voice cut through their silent anxieties. Now I will state the restriction. A tense silence descended. The restriction is no killing. What? Everyone was bewildered. Did the restriction of no killing literally mean they couldn't end each other's lives? Confusion etched itself onto their faces as they looked to the demon mask for clarification. They expected a detailed explanation, a rationale behind this sudden mercy. That is all, the demon mask stated plainly. That's it. So they had to choose a team leader without resort to lethal force. Everyone felt dumbfounded by the simplicity yet profound difference of this new restriction. Mok Gyeong-un, on the other hand, smacked his lips, a clear expression of disappointment. He had anticipated the same grim enjoyment as the second gate, but with the restriction on killing, the fun had vanished. This guy. Why was he disappointed? The boys next to him inwardly clicked their tongues. Shouldn't he consider himself fortunate? At least in this gate there would be no loss of life. Clank. At that moment, the red-belted warriors began to retrieve peculiar-shaped iron objects from a wooden box. The demon mask pointed to them. Before heading to the lodgings beyond the mountain, we will collect the Golden Gate lock. Ah! A wave of relief washed over them, brightening their expressions. They had wondered how long they would be forced to endure the Golden Gate lock. Finally, they would be freed. The inability to use their inner energy had been far more uncomfortable than they had imagined. Finally, Yeom Ga's lips twitched, a cruel smile forming. He had waited so long for this moment, for the shackles on his inner energy to be lifted. Yeom Ga glared intensely at the back of Mok Gyeong-un's head directly in front of him. He hadn't been able to counter that strange technique due to the restriction on his inner energy. Now, with the restriction gone, the situation would be entirely different. "I'll make you crawl between my legs." The restriction on killing meant little. As long as he didn't end a life, he could inflict any other form of humiliation or injury. The thought alone elevated his mood, and the corners of his mouth curled into a truly cruel grin. Beyond the mountain, a sprawling lodging building awaited them, a haven for temporary rest. It was designed with rooms for 2 occupants, so the boys swiftly paired up, choosing companions they either knew or simply found agreeable. The process was surprisingly quick. During this one-day respite, the boys' behaviors diverged into 2 distinct tendencies. Those of the first tendency, after quickly satisfying their hunger with the snacks provided in their rooms, universally began to circulate their inner energy. The previous night's bloody battle had exhausted their minds and bodies. Their immediate priority was to restore their physical equilibrium. The boys of the second tendency approached their rest differently. Though equally fatigued, they judged that securing teammates was paramount, a task best undertaken immediately. They proactively approached those who had been on their original teams or others they had mentally earmarked as potential allies. They were making strategic moves, understanding that competition would soon intensify. And then, there was a third tendency. Crack! Yeom Ga of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave stretched his body, having satiated his hunger. A powerful urge to circulate his energy, like the boy already seated on the bed, pulled at him. Yet he deemed the present moment too opportune to waste. He had to act now. This was his chance. His target remained that bastard Mok Gyeong-un. As long as he avoided killing him, he could cripple him, eliminating a thorn from his side for this gate and beyond. No one else truly worried him. But that guy's strange technique, his annoyingly arrogant presence, continued to gnaw at him. So I'll strike first. Now that the restriction was lifted, Yeom Ga's confidence surged. That strange technique was irrelevant. He had reached the peak realm and had mastered the Vermilion Slaughter Cave's secret arts. Then, shall we start the hunt? After a final stretch, Yeom Ga gripped the door handle and swung it open. What? Mok Gyeong-un stood directly in front of his door. He was smiling. You! Yeom Ga began, his voice caught in his throat. Oh my! It seems we had the same thought, Mok Gyeong-un murmured, his smile deepening. It was a smile filled with an unsettling malice. For a fleeting moment, Yeom Ga, who had just been so supremely confident, felt a sudden icy chill cascade down his spine. Candlelight flickered, painting the crimson room in shifting shadows. It was a place designed for indulgence, a brothel nestled on the far reaches of the Heaven and Earth Society's outer fortress. On a lacquered table, pots of red and white powder sat alongside delicate brushes, tools for transformation. A figure stared intently at these implements, a profound seriousness etched on a face not entirely their own. This was Cheong-ryeong, the supposed heir to the flying killing sect, but beneath her captivating features resided the spirit of Go-chan. His interlocked fingers supported his chin. The visage reflected in the polished mirror was undeniably beautiful, yet it sent a shiver of revulsion through him. This was not his face. It was not his life. "Do I have to go this far?" he murmured, the words a raw whisper of self-loathing. The sight of the cosmetics fueled a growing nausea within him. How had his existence devolved to such a pathetic state? As a servant spirit, his very being was tethered to Mok Gyeong-un. This bond had dragged him relentlessly through the treacherous currents of the martial world, pulling him to the very gates of the Heaven and Earth Society. Every fiber of his being screamed for escape, yet the invisible leash of his shared destiny with his master, Mok Gyeong-un, offered no choice. "Damn it!" Go-chan exhaled, a deep, weary sigh escaping his lips. He had somehow navigated the labyrinthine streets, reaching the outer fortress. The real challenge, however, began with the attempt to infiltrate the formidable Heaven and Earth Society. The security, he soon discovered, was beyond anything he could have imagined. It was impossible. His assassin days had seen countless infiltration missions. Indeed, stealth was the bedrock of most assassinations. Yet the sheer scale of the Heaven and Earth Society, a behemoth controlling a third of the martial world, dwarfed the small and medium-sized sects he had once breached. This was a different beast entirely. A tremor ran through Go Chan's hand as he reached for a brush. His fingers, trained for the silent kiss of a blade, now clutched a tool meant for delicate artistry. The reason was starkly simple: infiltration. A deep-seated aversion, an inherent disgust, rose from the depths of his soul. The thought of himself, a man, masquerading as a courtesan in such a place, made his skin crawl. Nausea churned in his stomach. Yet no other path presented itself. Go Chan had spent days wandering the outer fortress, meticulously gathering scraps of information. He had considered stowing away in supply carts or food deliveries, but the thorough inspections at every gate quickly dismissed that notion. Ultimately, the most viable option was to establish contact with an insider. Oh ho. So you're saying the young lady has come of age and wants to meet the heroes of the Heaven and Earth Society, is that right? The information broker's voice was slick with practiced ease. That's right, Go Chan stammered, the words feeling utterly foreign on his tongue. Even as he spoke, discomfort gnawed at him. But it won't be easy to meet gentlemen of the rank of team leaders or division leaders, not just low-level warriors of the Heaven and Earth Society. The broker stroked his chin, his eyes glinting with avarice. Is there no way? Go Chan pressed, desperation tinging his voice. Do you want to know? Ahem. A subtle hand extended, a clear invitation for coin. Go Chan, with a grimace, placed a handful of silver coins into the man's waiting palm. The broker's eyes lit up, and he readily divulged his secret. Do you know Crimson Orchid House? Crimson Orchid House. That's right. It's a brothel located on the eastern outskirts of the outer fortress, and there, a surge of outrage welled up. Are you telling me to become a courtesan? Go. Sean nearly snatched back his money, the absurdity of it all overwhelming. The information broker quickly placated him. Oh my. Listen to people until the end. Although Crimson Orchid House is a brothel, it's not an ordinary pleasure district. What's the difference between a brothel and a pleasure district? The courtesans there are not only outstanding in appearance, but also excel in academics, arts, and skills, and possess dignity, so even high-ranking gentlemen from inside the fortress visit. Is that true? After receiving the silver coins, would I lie? With the young lady's appearance, Crimson Orchid House will welcome you with open arms. Against his better judgment, trusting the broker's words, Go Chan had indeed infiltrated Crimson Orchid House. Despite his profound reservations, his entry was surprisingly smooth. When asked about his skills, he recalled the times he had disguised himself as a musician during his assassin days, playing the geomungo. They had welcomed him with enthusiastic open arms. You have artistic skills. We always welcome female musicians. They had even mentioned that a few courtesans had become concubines of the Heaven and Earth Society's division leaders, creating opportune vacancies. Concubines, a hollow laugh echoed in his mind. Perhaps, just perhaps, infiltration into the inner fortress was possible after all. Go. Chan swallowed, a dry, bitter taste in his mouth. After several moments of hesitant inaction, he finally picked up the brush, its bristles a soft threat against his skin, and began applying powder to his face. Are you ready? The voice of the head courtesan of Crimson Orchid House cut through the quiet, impatient, and resonant from beyond the door. Well... Go? Chan fumbled with the red powder on his lips, his hands shaking involuntarily. With a soft creak, the door swung inward. The head courtesan stepped inside, her eyes assessing. What's taking you so long to do your makeup? Since you have a pretty face, you can do it roughly. Let's see, how well did you do it? Go. Chan glanced at his reflection. A wave of perplexity washed over him, quickly replaced by horror. He had tried his best, dredging up memories of Ha Che-rin's movements, but his instinctive aversion had clearly sabotaged him. The head courtesan approached, her gaze falling upon Go Chan's made-up face, her expression crumpled, her brows furrowing. Oh my goodness, she muttered, a strangled sound. His face was ghostly white, caked with excessive powder, like a corpse. The ink, meant for his eyes, had been applied so sloppily that black tears streaked down his cheeks. The red powder on his lips extended far beyond their natural line, giving the grotesque illusion of a mouth torn to his ears. "You've made yourself look like a demon." The head courtesan clicked her tongue in disgust. The beauty was gone, replaced by a ghastly, ferocious visage. "Go." Chan gritted his teeth, the humiliation a searing brand. How had he fallen so far? Seduction my ass, he thought bitterly. It might have been better to risk his life directly. Mok Gyeong-un stood before the door, a smile playing on his lips. It was a chilling sight, one that momentarily stunned Yeom Ga into silence. The smile was not one of mirth, but of pure, unadulterated malice. The moment their eyes met, an icy dread slithered down Yeom Ga's spine. Restrictions on internal energy had been lifted, granting him full access to his power. Yet he felt an unsettling pressure, overwhelmed by the ominous aura radiating from this man. Yeom Ga gritted his teeth, anger brewing. He had intended to step forward, to swiftly cripple the impudent fool, but the sudden, unexpected appearance had stolen his momentum, leaving him off balance. His displeasure intensified, distorting Yeom Ga's features into a terrifying grimace. "What do you mean by having the same thought?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. "Is there any other reason?" Mok Gyeong-un countered, his smile unwavering. "What? I thought you looked useful, so I was considering taking you as a teammate." A low grinding sound erupted from Yeom Ga's jaw. He slowly began to gather his internal energy. "You going to take me as your teammate?" he spat, agitated. "Yes. Actually, I've been wanting to kill you since yesterday, but since the restriction of no killing is included in this gateway, I thought it would be better to just exploit you." Yeom Ga's eyes darted wildly, bloodshot with fury. What brazen nonsense was this insolent bastard spouting? To claim he wanted to kill him, but decided to exploit him instead. His teeth involuntarily ground together again. With the internal energy restriction lifted, how many among these boys could truly compete with him? Yeom Ga could no longer restrain himself. He lunged, his hand reaching for Mok Gyeong-un's neck. Internal energy coursed through his body, completing its circuit. His plan was swift: grab the neck with his right, instantly suppress acupoints with his left, and drag the insolent man into the room. But before his hand could even connect, a sharp crack echoed through the air. "Ooh." Mok Gyeong-un's foot slammed into Yeom Ga's abdomen. It was a blur, too fast to even perceive. Veins bulged on Yeom Ga's face, his skin flushing an angry red as if about to combust. You bastard," he gasped, the air knocked from his lungs. "Aren't legs longer than arms?" Mok Gyeong-un simply said, his tone utterly devoid of concern. With a loud smack, Yeom Ga tightened his abdomen, his toes flicking toward Mok Gyeong-un's femoral nerve. Mok Gyeong-un bent his leg, retreating a mere half-step. Not missing the opening, Yeom Ga pushed off his opposite foot, rotating his body in a fluid motion, bringing his leg crashing down towards Mok Gyeong-un's head. Whirling kick. It was the third stance of the Vermilion Heavenfoot technique, a proud legacy of the Vermilion Slaughter Cave. This particular stance was designed to deceive, raising a kick upward only to swiftly rotate the body and strike downward. Its speed and feints made it notoriously difficult to evade. Yet, with an almost imperceptible movement, Mok Gyeong-un shifted half a step, twisting his body. The whirling kick sliced through empty air. Suh! He never imagined anyone could dodge it with such ease, but a stance was meant to connect, and the next move was already unfolding. He twisted his body, his sword fingers thrusting toward Mok Gyeong-un's Adam's apple. Having reached the peak realm, he could infuse his fingers with energy, creating a sharpness that rivaled a true blade, a technique known as piercing energy. The piercing energy whistled through the air, poised to pierce Mok Gyeong-un's throat. But before it could even brush skin, a crack resonated. Mok Gyeong-un's foot, like a flash of lightning, kicked Yeom Ga's leg. It was a simple kick. Yeom Ga, confident in his internal energy, didn't bother to dodge. He channeled energy to his leg, creating a repulsive force. His senses told him he was superior in internal energy. He could surely endure this. Another resounding thwack. Ugh. Yeom Ga's body half-rotated instantly, sending his head slamming into the floor. For a moment, he lay there, dazed. What had just happened? He couldn't comprehend why he couldn't dodge the kick, or why, at the moment of impact, the repulsive force had simply scattered. What? While he was still reeling, Mok Gyeong-un's voice cut through the fog of his confusion. You're weaker than I thought. You bastard! Yeom Ga's anger erupted anew. He flicked his arm, springing to his feet, simultaneously aiming a kick at Mok Gyeong-un's neck. Mok Gyeong-un effortlessly dodged, then grabbed Yeom Ga's head, slamming it into the floor again. The floorboard shattered with a loud crash, Yeom Ga's head embedding itself in the splintered wood. The pain was immense, but the humiliation was unbearable. He strained, pulling his internal energy to its fullest, trying to lift his head. But strangely, the energy focused on his neck and head scattered, dissipating little by little. His strength seemed to drain away. What is this? It was an incomprehensible phenomenon. As he struggled, Mok Gyeong-un yanked Yeom Ga's hair. With a painful pop, his embedded head was pulled free, sharp wooden splinters piercing his face, blood trickling down. Mok Gyeong-un smirked, a satisfied expression on his face as he surveyed Yeom Ga's battered features. Your face looks a bit better now. You? What did you do? Yeom Ga choked out, his voice hoarse. What do you mean, what did I do? Don't tell me you used something like scattered energy poison? Scattered energy poison? Mok Gyeong-un countered, a puzzled expression on his face. He prided himself on knowing almost every poison, unless it was truly esoteric, yet he'd never heard of this, scattered energy poison. Scattered energy poison. A strange concoction, manufactured through a special method designed to scatter internal energy once specific conditions were met. Don't play dumb. If it's not scattered energy poison, then why is my internal energy scattering whenever I come into contact with you? Every collision with Mok Gyeong-un caused the internal energy in that area to dissipate. At first, he dismissed it as coincidence, but after a second time, the terrifying possibility of scattered energy poison solidified in his mind. Was there such an interesting poison? Mok Gyeong-un mused, his tone dangerously casual. Is this bastard toying with me now? Yeom Ga's anger reached its zenith. There was no choice now but to unleash the secret technique of Vermilion's slaughter cave. This assassination move guaranteed the opponent's demise. He had been forbidden to use it except in dire, exceptional circumstances, but he couldn't bear this humiliation a moment longer. His chest thumped as Yeom Ga concentrated his internal energy. The strange patterns tattooed on his upper body began to glow a furious red, but at that precise moment, a sickening thwack. Ugh! Mok Gyeong-un pulled Yeom Ga's hair back, slamming his fist down, and he didn't stop. As if intent on shattering Yeom Ga's face entirely, Mok Gyeong-un continued to strike. Ack, stop, do sto tapi, another thwack, another thwack. A distinct crack echoed, the sound of his nose breaking, teeth shattering. But the blows continued. There was no time for a secret technique, no time for anything. With the relentless barrage of strikes to his face, Yeom Ga's consciousness faded. Huh! A sound from behind made Mok Gyeong-un turn his head, his fist still raised. A boy, roused by the cacophony of the fight, had woken from his energy circulation and breath refining. What? What is going on? The boy stared, unable to hide his bewilderment. Yeom Ga, his hair still gripped in Mok Gyeong-un's hand, his face a bloody, pulpy mess, presented a horrifying tableau. Mok Gyeong-un, his hand still stained with blood, waved it dismissively at the stunned boy. Don't mind me and just continue what you are doing, he said with a chilling smile.